please. It is 9:01. Good morning. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority for Thursday, May 25th. At this time, we will have Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Phil DeLeon, our CEO, will you lead us, sir? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Nat Araceli? Here. Mr. John Farahi will be calling in later. Mr. Michael Hicks. Mr. Ed Lawson. Here. Mr. Bob Lucy.
Here.
Mr. Rick Murdoch. Here. Mr. Mayor Sheevy. Here. Mr. Bill Wood. Here. Mr. John Vineyard. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time we are here for public comment. Mr. Kennedy, would you please read the public comment item for us, please, and inform the public?
Sure. So public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Public is encouraged to comment on all agenda items as well as issues not on the agenda during the public comment period or on action items immediately before board discussion of such action items. Members of the public desiring to speak must complete a request to speak form and return it to the RSCVA clerk at the meeting. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken.
No.
Public comments may not be accepted after the chairman closes any period for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. At this time, I have quite a few signed in, so what I'll do is I'm going to call your names, and then I'll call the person subsequently right after you. If you'll kind of just stage up, we'll have you come to the podium and announce your name and start from there. First I have, I think it's Sternberg. Oh, that's on item. Oh, these are all on item E2.
Good morning. My name is Fang Sternberg.
Oh.
I'm a resident of Sparks, a registered voter, and I just came here to voice my opposition to destroying another public golf course. Since the economic downturn, we've lost 4 public golf courses in the Truckee Meadows. And I think that we need to retain Wild Creek as a public golf course. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next I have, apologize here. That's all Wild Creek. These weren't organized for that. Elizabeth Griffin.
I'm Liz Griffin. I'm a resident of Sparks, Nevada. I'm too short. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Been a resident of Sparks, Nevada for many, many years. I have some grave concerns over this project. First of all, I'm accustomed to seeing, let's call it more transparency and notification to the public with regard to all of these meetings that have been going on regarding this situation. I don't feel like that's really been adequately addressed. Number 2, obviously, I am opposed to removing yet another golf course. The prior gentleman said we've lost, 4 golf courses in the past few years. They have not been replaced, and I think that that's something to note. Wild Creek is for the use of the public. I'm going to read off of my notes, if you don't mind, because I can't remember all my points. Wild Creek has special uses too. We've got 2 high school sports teams that utilize Wild Creek, as well as Special Olympics, and I think that that's a worthy cause. Where are the traffic studies about this? We're very concerned about the impact on the infrastructure. what it's going to do to the roads, what the further costs down the road are going to be as a result of somewhere around 2,600 students entering, exiting, and so forth, plus the staff. Another concern is we have been seeing more school lockdowns. I think it would be problematic should we have a lockdown in a facility that size with 2,600 students plus staff. The plan proposes a football field, swimming pool, baseball diamond, and so forth. All of that is going to necessitate a PA system and lighting that is going to impact surrounding condos and homes. We've heard about other developments in other neighborhoods needing schools, and I think that it's premature to look at a mega project such as this without addressing some of the newer communities that need their schools. Some things that I think could be problematic with a school that size: inadequate supervision due to large numbers in one location, inability to give personalized attention as we should to the students. Once again, what happens in the event of a lockdown? It's on the flight path too, by the way. We have many, many planes going over that golf course daily. What if? Just what if? 2,600 students and all of that staff. I, for one, do not support the creation of a mega campus. I do not feel that this serves our students well. I think that properly situated neighborhood schools are better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Wesley Griffin.
I'm Wesley Griffin, and I'm here to state my opposition to the building of a high school on our precious golf course. That golf course has been a part of our community for 40 years, and there are literally tens of thousands of people that use the golf course and have benefited from the golf course. I've talked to numerous people, many people caught in the traffic going to work and coming from work, talk about what a stress reliever it is to look out over the green space. It's a beautiful place. People love Wild Creek Golf Course. We all make mistakes. I've made plenty in my life. Anybody else make mistakes? Gosh, boy, I need to talk to some of you folks. I make lots of mistakes, and I have made mistakes. When I make a mistake, I've found that the best thing for me to do is turn around as soon as possible and head the other way. This is a big mistake. You're going to find that there's going to be a lot of opposition to this. People want that golf course. And we have just begun our fight. We've fought this fight before. We've brought our opposition. You folks know what our opposition is, and you know about it. We feel like we've been hoodwinked on this. We find out after the election, we saw in the WC1 that the schools needed, we're planning on putting another high school in the Wild Creek area. Nothing was mentioned about Wild Creek Golf Course. Why can't we be straightforward? We see that when this was done, this was such a great plan that we didn't even have to consider any alternatives. If you had an employee in a private corporation that come up with a statement like that, they'd probably be looking for another job. There are other alternatives. There are much better alternatives. We want our golf course, and we're going to go to the mat on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Gene Hotchkiss. Gene Hotchkiss. Seeing no Gene, all right. Next, I have a Paula Smack. Is there a Paula Smack that is signed in for their?
SMAK?
Yeah. All right, I see no Paula Smack, all right. Justin Aguilar.
Good morning. My name is Justin Aguilar. I'm here to talk about Night in the Country. So just wanted to use this as a networking opportunity. Again, my name is Justin Aguilar. I'm the Festival Director for Night in the Country. I want to talk a little bit about Night in the Country and some upcoming events we do have in the works. What I provided you was our marketing one sheet for you guys to review that kind of shows our reach. I gave you some literature on our Give and Get program, where it shows that Night in the Country gave over $70,000 to 41 nonprofits in Northern Nevada through our Give and Get volunteer program. A little bit about Night in the Country. It's always held the last weekend in July. We have about 10,000 concert goers a day over the 3 days. I'm here today to talk about some future ventures we have. We currently do a Night in the City concert at GSR. We had our second annual this year, which is the end of March. But further, we have some upcoming projects where we've been talking with UNR about doing a stadium show at Mackey, and we actually had our initial conversations with Ms. Ann Larson and John Tipton at UNR for a 2018 show at Mackey Stadium to hopefully have about 25,000 people in the venue at a country western concert. Further, we have been approached and have had initial conversations with Brian Moss of Greater Nevada Field and your Steve Markwell of the Reno Event Center about doing concerts there. So that's just kind of the vision with Night in the Country, is providing concerts, producing concerts in the Reno area to bring people, hopefully from the Bay Area, our way, instead of us sending all our people over the hill to Sacramento area to produce concerts up here. So again, I just want to use this as a marketing or a networking opportunity to get my name out there. If you guys have any boards or associations you think would be beneficial for Night in the Country to be a part of, please contact me. I gave you my business card, and that's all I have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Next, I have Andrew Diss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Andrew Diss, representing the Grand Sierra Resort. I wanted to come and talk to all of you today about supporting the proposition of turning over Wild Creek to the school district. Some of you were at that joint meeting that we had a few weeks ago. Mr. Wood, Mr. Hicks, you heard me say this before. But a few months ago, prior to the election, the Grand Sierra, along with a lot of the other gaming representatives on this board, stepped up and supported the passage of WC1. And it's something that is good for our employees. We employ thousands of people in the community, and they all have families that attend schools in the district. And it's important for us to do what we can to support a good quality of life for our employees, and we believe that supporting schools is good for that. Furthermore, in addition to that, part of your agenda packet today, you all have the annual forecast and capital budget that is presented, that's been put together by the finance staff. And if you look at the facility forecasts for all the RSCVA run facilities, you'll see that Wild Creek operates at a loss of $243,979 a year. Now, all of you have a fiduciary responsibility in overseeing these public tax dollars that you are responsible for. And as part of that responsibility, we think it makes a lot of sense for you guys to get this money loser off the books. But the proposal I have seen already from the school district, it takes into account the people who still want to enjoy Wild Creek, who still want to use the facilities, because they're going to retain 9 holes. At least that's the latest proposal that I have seen. So it seems like it's a win-win for the community, where we get to build a new school and we also get to retain half of the golf course. So I just wanted to get that on the record in front of all of you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Diss. All right, next I have Mr. Mike Mazzaferri. Mr. Mazzaferri, you're signed in for agenda item E2. You could speak now or later if you would choose. Okay. Okay. Mr. Mazzaferri, the floor is yours, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate the comments. We're trying to conduct a business meeting, so if we could keep it to that'd be great. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Mazzaferri.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Mike Mazzaferri, local golf professional. I'm here just to talk a little bit about local golf. You know, if Wild Creek closes, it'll be 99 holes of golf that will close in Washoe County since 2006 when Brookside closed. And the golf community is getting pretty concerned about the wrong kind of golf courses are closing. Public golf courses that support our youth, our seniors, new golfers, you know. And I know how much Washoe County School District needs a new high school, and I think this could be a great project, a great location for a high school. I would urge you to look at the public golf element and keep a golf element in this project as it moves forward. I would urge, you know, go slow and address all of the needs, the community residents there, the local golfers. There's flood issues, traffic issues, you know, a lot of things that need to be addressed. And I think if the high school is going to happen, the golf really needs to have a place there. I've been here, and my whole career's been in northern Nevada, and I've seen the ups and downs. You know, in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, you couldn't get a tee time if you bribed a lot of people. And we built some golf courses, and we built those golf courses for lot premiums and to sell rooms primarily. And a few public courses like Rosewood and Wild Creek that came along, you know, served a public need. And I would urge all of you to come out to one of the local public golf courses, our golf course at Sierra Sage, that we operate for the county, and see the people that are playing it. You know, 12% of the population plays golf, and there's, you know, 25 or 30,000 golfers here, and every time one of these places closes, they relocate to another course, and pretty soon there won't be a place for them to go. And I ran Brookside for 10 years when I worked for the city of Reno, and I think everybody that learned golf in northern Nevada went through Brookside because it was affordable, it was very playable, and we need places like that. So, and I'd also urge you to think about what happened at Sierra Sage. My wife and I took it over in 2010. It was scheduled to close, and you know, we turned it into a viable business again, just with some hard work and good management. So, you know, as we move forward, I would like to tell you, if this is going to happen and you folks are going to get out of the golf business and the high school ends up there, to go slow and address everything that needs to be addressed, in particular the golf element. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzaferri. Next, I have John Hess. Hesse, I'm sorry, sir. John Hesse. It's my mistake. My apologies. Mr. Hesse.
Good morning. I'm John Hesse. Everybody hear me, I guess? I'm speaking in favor of keeping Wild Creek. The courts have been there, of course, for a very long time, and we'd like to obviously keep it there. The traffic issues, I don't think have been addressed by RTC that we've heard of yet. Whittakin Road is a country road, probably always will be, and McCarran and Pyramid, there's not a lot of construction going on there, but it seems like you're just moving the problem to the west on Sullivan and McCarran now. Going to have to be roundabouts and lights, and I don't know who's going to pay for all that stuff. But I am worried about the traffic. That's probably my biggest issue is the traffic. I think it just would be a shame to take an existing course and turn it into a school when there's so much vacant land around. And more on El Rancho, Sullivan, Audi Boulevard, I think that would be a lot better location. And the kids that go to school there, if there are going to be 2,500 kids going to school, all the teachers, the school buses, just a lot more access. And I'm sure there are other places around that could go ahead and fit a high school and all the other facilities in. But I'd definitely be in favor of keeping the golf course as is. I think if we turn it over to some management company, maybe we'd be able to get something like Mike's got going out there at Sierra Sage. A lot of wildlife would be saved, a lot of jobs would be saved, and I would kind of still like to see some of the books on how much Wild Creek is losing, because there's always cars in that parking lot, and I think that some of that money might be taken to subsidize some of the other projects that are going on. Not saying that it's bad, but I don't think that bowling stadium makes a lot of money. I don't know about the rodeo arena, but anyway, I think that it's just sad to take that Wild Creek golf course away. So thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Hesse, thank you. Next, I have Rich Lawler.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Rich Lawler. I've been a Sparks Reno resident pretty much all my life. Wild Creek is like home to me. I understand the county schools are in trouble. They need help. We do need more schools. We need improvement on our existing schools. To me, building a high school at Wild Creek, instead of fixing up Sparks, adding on to Hug, would be a lot cheaper, and then you'd be saving Wild Creek. Wild Creek is just special to everybody. It's Sparks. RSCVA last year committed to getting out of the golf business, which is totally understandable. But they also said that if they're going to turn it over to someone who's going to keep it a golf course. As far as the financing and the money that says it's being lost, growth is coming to this town. There's more people moving in. Wild Creek is going to be, well, that bond's going to be up in what, 4 years? That's what, 180 grand a year? The course is on the turn of making money. We can talk about the school district all we want. I think today is about the RSCVA. I agree with Mike. Take your time. Don't rush into this. Hopefully you can hang on to it for another year, and I bet you'll see some changes. You'll see the money start coming in. And the job the staff has done at Wild Creek over the last couple of years with no money for improvements, the course is turning into a great shape. Please, hang on to that course. And RSCVA members, 10 years down the road, you'd be driving on McCarran and see Wild Creek there. You're going to think, wow, we were part of saving this beautiful piece of property. Thank you.
Next, I have Tia Middlestat.
Hi, I'm a resident of Sparks in Spanish Springs, and I'm here to voice my support for a new school, a lot of the others. But a new school is badly needed for our community. My son is in 7th grade at Shaw Middle School and will graduate in 2022. This new school would help alleviate overcrowding at Spanish Springs High School. Springs is the largest high school in northern Nevada with over 2,300 students. With the amount of new housing being built in the area and the growth in Spanish Springs and Sparks, the population of the school will definitely go up. Overcrowding at Spanish Springs High School could lead to double sessions, which is something nobody wants. It could put stresses on students and teachers. A new school would allow more of the community to share the public land at Wild Creek. The new career and tech school at Hug campus is needed for more opportunities for students and skill development for employers. I do care about the community, and I have a child that would benefit from this project, and I hope this can become a reality in some form or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jana Moyer.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm also here to speak in favor of a new school. I'm actually here in 2 capacities. I'm a teacher at Hug High School, and so I'm here to voice my support for this project, but I'm also here to give a little brief introduction. I have some students that will be speaking in a few minutes, and as you can imagine, it's pretty intimidating for them to be here and speak in front of all of you, so I just want to let them know you're going to be fine, and all of you know if they're a little nervous, we're going to be supportive. I really do feel deeply for those of you that live near the golf course and love the golf course and want to save it. But I also feel deeply for my students. I graduated from Hug High School in 2003, and it needed repairs then. And not just repairs, it's really more of an emotional issue in a lot of ways. It's a school that was left behind when McQueen was built, and we saw most of our more affluent population leave. The same happened in 2001 when North Valleys was built, and the school's demographics shifted again. And it seems to me that we've not always done right by the students of our Hug community, and I think this is an opportunity to really do right by them, by our whole community. And we just really hope that this is a project that will bring together several communities and create a place that can be kind of a centerpiece for our community. And so I just want to let them know that you guys are going to do great expressing your opinions. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to take away from what you all are going to say, but thank you for having us. I hope that you listen with an open mind and open heart to what they're going to say.
Thank you, Ms. Moyer. Next, I have Alicia Harris. So, is it Elijah?
Elijah.
I'm sorry. Mr. Harris, the floor is yours.
That'll work too. Hi, my name is Elisha. I'm a dropout prevention coordinator at Hug High School, and I'm here to talk for the development of the new school. My biggest concern while I'm for the school is I want to make sure that the zoning takes into account the median income level of the students that attend Hug High School. I know we've got a lot of business coming in, a lot more money coming into the area, and I'm worried that that surrounding area, especially when this big, pretty new, shiny school gets developed, we'll start to see families outpriced from their neighborhood. And then the same thing will happen where we saw with McQueen and North Valleys, where the school demographics will shift and our Hug students will be left behind. Our students definitely deserve a new school, but this new school definitely deserves our students as well, or at least I want to make sure that they do, because we have brilliant students at Hug. We have insanely talented students at Hug that deserve all of these things that they've often been overlooked for. And so I just want to make sure that in the analysis when it comes to the flight path and the traffic and all that, you look at the housing situation around there. And I don't know if it needs to be rent control or whatever, but something is figured out to make sure that our families still get to access to school once it's here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Harris. Next, I have Jason Cruz.
Good morning. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me today. I'm here to speak in favor of building a new high school on the Wild Creek Golf Course. The main reason for this is I'd like to bring up something that many people have failed to mention. If you look at all the high schools right now that are built right now, there's this great divide in every single community that you see. And you might not see it at first glance, but it's all divided by class. We built this segregated school district that it's all divided by class, and you don't get to see the real world when you attend this. Previously I attended Reno High, and the mindset that I saw there was vastly different from the mindset that I see at Hug High School. And by building this high school at Wild Creek, although there are many negative things about it, building this high school will help make a community where it replicates the thing that we see in the real world. Right now, we're raising our students to only act upon what they see. So the students at Hug, the first thing that they see would be to solve a problem would be to fight it, you know? Whereas other students, they could be well-spoken and on top of that, you know, have access to all these important things. And us Hug students, we get left behind. We really need to build this high school for the sake of bettering not our future, essentially. This betters our future. Our students are our future, and we fail to see that. Yes, many of you guys are concerned about this golf course. And yes, taking away from it might, you know, mean you can't play golf there anymore. But this is our future, guys. This is an investment that will I'm just in favor of it. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Appreciate it. Next, I have Araceli Salazar and Jameelah Moreno.
Hello, we're also from Hug High School, and we're at the Gate Institute at Hug, and we feel that we need to build a new school also for our students because there is a divide, as previously mentioned. For example, in the Gate Institute, there aren't many Hispanic students because a lot of the GT kids are zoned to go to like McQueen or Reno or Spanish Springs. And a lot of parents feel that, oh, they would get a better education there. And I feel that's because Hug has been dubbed like the thug place, and it's not true. We have really great students there, and I don't want the divide to be there. So if we build a new school and more students come from different, ethnicities, I feel that we would come together as a community, and with all the racial tensions going around right now, I feel that it's really important, especially like right now, so that we raise our students with the correct mindset, with the mindful mindset that we have to accept each other.
I also want to speak on the fact that the school in general, like Hug High School, it's really run down. I mean, like you can go walking into bathrooms and there's not locks on the bathroom stalls. There's bathroom in Tea House that does not have a door at all. And sometimes like in the winter, the rooms are really cold, and then in the summer, it's really hot. So like it's kind of hard to focus because you're worried about like, can I warm myself up during the winter, or like, how can I focus because it's too hot? And then you just sit there and you're frustrated because you have to learn and you can't control anything else. I mean, I don't know. And then just the physical aspect of high school itself, when it comes to athletic events, not many other people want to come because they're afraid. Like, I remember one time during a basketball warm-up, I had some girls like, oh my God, I really don't want to be here. What if I get stabbed? Like, that's pretty much ridiculous. The physical aspect has nothing to do with what the students there have as their morals. So, I don't know. A new school would actually give Hug and other schools kind of like a start over. There's really no set image yet. And then all the great students would come in and give it that image that everybody is equal and we all have good aspects to our society.
So I think that the main point really is we are the future, and we're growing up, at least at Hug, thinking that we aren't good enough for this society, but we are, and we should be considered like we are. And for me, it's an emotional kind of connection to the new school. All of my siblings have gone to Hug. I was pretty much destined to go to Hug. And like Ms. Moyer said, it needed, fixes then. It needs them now.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Next, I have Luz Cunha.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Cunha, and I am here on behalf of Hug High's speech and debate team to show our support to build this new high school. Although all my classmates cannot be here today, I still hope you will hear not only myself, but our class as a whole. And before I begin, I would like to thank you all for lending me your time to discuss this project. In the city of Reno, schools suffer from overcrowding and are hardly able to accommodate to this issue. Having a new school would ease large schools such as McQueen that had a 114% capacity during their 2014 to 2015 school session from having such a problem. It really is an issue to have so many students in a single building. It's hard to attend to every single student when there's so many others. It is both a strain on student and teacher, making rates of failing even higher when teachers can't help students that are struggling in the class and on the whole course. Neglection can happen and student bonds with teachers can't be made. And last year, Nevada was in last place for our education system. But I truly believe that with a new school and less students to attend in a single class, it would really help boost Nevada and its students up. And with the issue with money, the thing is that here in Nevada, we spend less money on our students than the rest of the country, so that's an issue. And I think that it's time we start supporting our school system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cunha. At this time, that's all I have signed in for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak at this time on this item? Sir? Sir, could you please come up to the podium, and then we'll have identify yourself, and then we'll have you fill out a comment card.
Why does the school have to be built on the golf course?
Sir, we can't answer questions. This is public comment, so you're allowed to make a statement at this time if you so choose. Can you address your name for the record, sir?
My name is Dana Hiblinger.
Okay, thanks, Dana. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I do have a few more that have signed in at this time. They're all signed in for item E22, so we're going to wait until that time for those. Ma'am? Yes, you may. Please come up to the podium.
Hello, my name is Darlene Hesse. I lived at Wild Creek for 40 years. This is really a lovely place that you're going to take. And there's so many other areas in this town that you can build a high school. I am for schools, I'm for education. But this is maybe the most inappropriate thing that you people are doing. You need to come down there and look at the beauty, the animals, the birds. I mean, it's not just a golf course, it's a sanctuary. It's for the people. It's an open area. It was given to the people, and it should remain for the people. And the schools can go somewhere else. You have to bus in 2,500 people a day? What is that going to do to our area? How about the traffic? The traffic is just tremendous there. It's just unbelievable. McCarran, we can't hardly even get out of our own roadway right now. And then with 2,500 cars coming in, but I do think we need schools, but we don't need them at Wild Creek Golf Course. And that's a very important piece of property to hang on to for the people. And it's a lovely place. Open your eyes. You're taking this is a sad day for all of you people, and you don't even realize it. I'm very sad about this. Thank you. I hope you take it under consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Hesse. Miss Hesse, Miss Hesse, Miss Hesse. Miss Hesse. Miss Hesse. Ma'am, can I have you sign a comment card, please? Thank you. All right. Seeing no other public comment, ma'am? Please state your name for the record, please.
My name is Kathleen Shupp, and I live close to the Wild Creek Golf Course as well. I don't know what sort of environmental studies y'all have been doing to change that property over, but I do hope that you take into consideration light and noise pollution. The property there is like a horseshoe, so you're talking about an amphitheater. You're pushing the sound out in that direction. And I think it's going to impact a lot more than just our local community at Wild Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Could you please sign in for me? Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment at this time, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board. At this time, we are on to item C, approval of the agenda. Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, we'd like to move item F1 up to the beginning of the meeting so that Mr. Farahi, if this passes, would have the ability to call in.
So can we take that after item D, the approval of the minutes? Or would you
Yes.
like to do that right now?
We'll make the motion to take item F1 after D.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended? Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to approval of minutes for April 27, 2017 Board of Directors meeting. Looking for a motion. Motion to approve. I have a motion from Mr. Murdoch.
Second.
Second from Mayor Sheeby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are moving on to item F1, amendment to rules of procedure for RSCVA board meetings. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, this item is to revise the rules of procedure of the RSCVA board. This revision was, per the board procedures, was read into the record at the last meeting and requires action at this meeting to be adopted. I'm just going to read it into the record here. Section 2.10, participation. Telephonic attendance at board and committee meetings by board members will be permitted without further approval when a board member is unable to attend a meeting in person and desires to participate via teleconference. When teleconferencing is used, facilities will be utilized which permit the members of the board as well as all members of the public in attendance at the meeting to hear all telephonic communications. Additionally, facsimile or email facilities should be made available to teleconferencing board members to enable transmission of hard copy visual materials which are key to decisions being made at the meeting. Board members attending via telephone may participate and vote during the meeting as if they were physically present at the meeting. The minutes of the meeting shall clearly set forth which board members are present in person and which are present by teleconference. With that, I will give it back to the chair for the board to take action or for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or discussion at this time? Seeing no discussion, Mr. Vice Chair.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the bylaws.
I have a motion from the Vice Chair, second from Mr. Hicks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Farahi can join us now via phone, but we won't call him yet. We will call him in a minute. All right? Thanks. This time we are back to the originally scheduled agenda. We are on to presentations. We have E1, which is RSCVA legislative update. Ms. Elliott with Capital Partners. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Mindy Elliott with Capital Partners, and with me is Nick Vanderpool, one of my business partners. I'd like to compliment the students on their presentations this morning. I'd like to bring you down to Carson City to help me lobby, because I think you guys would be helpful in our efforts. We provided to you in your packets, you have a legislative update report. I'm just going to briefly go over where we are as of this morning and then turn the presentation over to Nick, who's going to highlight some of our priority bills as requested. We've placed the 4 priority bills at the top. We've moved the structure down. We took off all the dead bills, although there'll be more dead bills as of tomorrow, but we'll continue to update the report. Right now, we have bill draft requests, 1,227. There are 546 Senate bills, 516 Assembly bills. They're currently sitting in the Senate Finance and Ways and Means of the Assembly that are deemed exempt. Probably haven't even had a hearing yet. There are 178 bills in the Senate, and there are 185 bills in the Assembly, and we have less than 2 weeks left, and these bills have probably not even had hearings. Lobbyists, which is a near and dear number to me, there's 1,032 lobbyists in the building, and our next deadline date is tomorrow, May 26th. Bills that are not either deemed exempt or waived have to be out of the second house. So they have to be moving. So we were there late last night, we'll be there late tonight, and we'll be there late tomorrow night. And currently we are tracking for the RSCVA a total of 27 bills specific to the RSCVA. That does not include bills that are general business in nature. That could have an impact to many of our clients, not just the RSCVA. We're only going to talk about RSCVA bills this morning. We'll provide I know you're busy, you have a full agenda, so we're going to dive right into this. I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Nick Vanderpool, for the record, Capital Partners. I'm just so used to doing that at the legislature. So right now, we'll dive into it. The first bill is Assembly Bill 294. This requires the accommodations facilitator to collect and remit room taxes under certain circumstances. Obviously, this is a bill aimed at Airbnb and VRBO. We have worked with the bill sponsor to ensure that she knew RSCVA has a working relationship with Airbnb and does not need the legislation. However, they are focused more on a Las Vegas, Clark County perspective. The bill requires county commissions and city councils to implement the transient lodging providers to pay room taxes. So as this piece of legislation moves forward, it will be essential for RSCVA to work with local governments here in Northern Nevada, in Washoe County, City of Reno, and City of Sparks. And fortunately, RSCVA already has these representatives on this board, and I'm sure there will be a conversation as this legislation moves forward. Next bill, SB 414. Revises provisions governing the taxation of certain property owned by non-residents. Again, another Airbnb bill. This provides for, I'm sorry. This bill provides for an exemption of taxes to merchants, manufacturers at all for the purpose of an exhibit used in a convention or trade show located in the state or display, exhibition, carnival, fair, or circus that is transient in nature for not more than 30 days. So as these shows come to town, they won't be subject to certain taxes. Next bill, SB 194. This has been a fun, joyful bill for Capital Partners and RSCVA staff, specifically Mr. Talone. This prohibits the sale of products derived from or containing certain animal species under certain circumstances. Specifically, what we're looking at as it relates to RSCVA is the Safari Club International Convention. We were brought in as a mediator. We did not take a formal position on this piece of legislation, but because of the tie between Safari Club International and their convention, and obviously holding the convention here at the convention space, we became the point of contact, I guess you could say, for the government relations firm and the firm called Dazzle Africa. That's the firm behind, the nonprofit behind the piece of legislation. So it was one of those that, well, what did SCI say? What did Dazzle Africa say? At the end of the day, it was like, here's their phone number. Please talk and communicate and find a compromise. I can say that they're still working on it. This board has not taken a formal position as it relates to this piece of legislation, nor has Capital Partners testified or taken a position, not even a neutral position. We are simply monitoring the bill, and we became a mediator as it relates to this piece of legislation. Yeah, and we arranged a call between Senator Mo Dennis, who is the sponsor of the bill, and Safari Club International. Again, simply a mediator. I know the senator was very appreciative of the efforts that we put forward, but he understood the middle person that we were placed into being. The next piece of legislation is SB 235, provides the regulation of ticket sales to an athletic contest or live entertainment event in certain circumstances. We have been working closely with RSCVA staff, specifically Mr. Rivers. We worked with the bill sponsor, specifically it was the Smith Center down in Las Vegas, to ensure that the RSCVA's issues were identified and resolved. The bill moved from Senate Finance yesterday to the floor. We continue to forward the amendments to staff for review and comment. Next bill is Assembly Bill 154, revises provisions relating to prevailing wages. Governor Sandoval is now open to discussion of an increase to the minimum wage. We believe at the end of the day it will be a compromise versus governing by the at the ballot box. As we move forward and Nevada moves forward, this is a conversation that obviously minimum wage and paying employees a rate that they deserve. So those are the priority bills that we've identified, and I'll turn it back over to Mindy, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Hey, Nick, real quick, you're talking about AB 154? This is relating to prevailing wage, not minimum wage.
Oh, I'm sorry, prevailing wage.
There's a big difference.
Yes.
That's prevailing wage. You're correct. It's prevailing wage on projects. And that was probably my mistake on my notes, because Governor Sandoval did come out this morning with the minimum wage. That was on my top of my head. That, and we are tracking minimum wage on behalf of the RSCVA
So
too.
they've increased the prevailing wage? Is that what's happened?
Is this for business?
Said it's on to the governor.
Yeah, he'll answer it.
So as it relates to prevailing wage, obviously, with both houses being, it's basically it will be a compromise, I believe, at the end of the day. But as it relates to this piece of legislation, it will be a probably, how do I say this in? Yeah, it will be when prevailing wage kicks in on projects. I mean, definitely, there's been, on public works projects, I'd like to look at the minimum requirement on the project job. There has been some pieces of legislation that the prevailing wage, if it's a minimum of $5 million, for example. So between 0 to 4.9999 million, there's no prevailing wage put in. So that's a piece of legislation that's being discussed, if that makes sense.
Last year during 2015, there was, they actually increased the threshold that the requirement for any project for prevailing wage to be a requirement of the project. They increased it under the Republicans, and they are looking to return that to the 2013 level for when prevailing wage will actually be a requirement. The number is pretty fluid right now. We know what the unions are looking for and what the Republicans might even support. So we'll see what happens on that bill. A couple of bills further to talk about. AB 307 was a bill that the RSCVA was originally not involved. It's a requirement to have emergency medical services at special events. What the bill requires to do is that prior to a special event permit being issued, the special event coordinator will need to go to the city, the county, to either Sparks, Reno, or to Washoe County, and there will be a requirement for a public hearing. The public hearing, at that point, after the hearing, they will determine what type of emergency personnel will be required at the special event. We've been discussing with Mr. DeLone if there will be any impact to any of the special events that come into the community. The bill is still moving towards, through the legislative process, and it provides the ability for the local governments to recoup their costs for the special events for providing emergency medical personnel. So that bill's just one that we're tracking on behalf. A bill that could, especially with the new marketing efforts on behalf of the Convention Authority, there's going to be a Public Lands Day. I'm not sure if you saw us. Governor Sandoval signed this at a state park. State parks will have free entries on this Public Land Days. There'll be free boating, maybe not up here, but there'll be free boating access to the lakes, and it is an encouragement for especially Nevadans to use our state and state resources. So that's Public Lands Day, and the date is going to be the last Saturday in September is established at Public Lands Day. So, and it's enabling. It says May. The governor has to issue a proclamation.
Great.
The tax credits on film production are still moving through the legislature, and we're tracking that. We'll see if they have an allocation right now of $10 million per fiscal year for transferable tax credits. So we're still tracking that to see if at the end of the day that moves out. That's always one of the last minute items is tax credits. Something that I think, again, goes along with the new Reno Tahoe effort. I'm standing here and looking at create art, destroy monotony. There is a bill, SB 187, that would provide a $10 million appropriation to the Nevada Museum of Art for them to have the ability to expand. So that is SB 187, and we're tracking that. And then on behalf of, we worked very closely with Mrs. Cunningham and Mr. DeLone on, there's several brew pub craft beer bills moving towards, through the legislative process. Those bills would enable our local craft beer distilleries to increase the level of their production and sell directly to the public. In working with staff, we've learned that this is an area of potential growth for the RSCVA, and hopefully one of the original elements of the bill is that you couldn't have more than 2 locations if you wanted to expand your business. So that has been eliminated, and the volumes have increased, and we've been working very closely to make sure that this bill moves forward, and we've been communicating with the bill sponsor how important craft beer, vineyards, any type of expansion in this area is to Nevada on behalf of the RSCVA. And for Mr. Kennedy, I have a gift for you. I have the tables of the bills just for you. I brought this with the kindness of my heart. So this is all the bills and the statutes that are being impacted currently in the legislative session. And with that, I'll close my presentation because I know you have a lot on your agenda.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for your presentation. Is there any further discussion or questions for Capital Partners at this time? Seeing none, we'll close that and accept the report. Thank you very much. All right. This brings us to item E2. First and foremost, we'll take E2. This is the presentations on Wild Creek Golf Course and the update. We're at E2-1, presentation and update on Washoe County Question 1 and Washoe County School District Infrastructure Plan. Today we have with us Mr. Pete Etchart, who is the Chief Operating Officer for the Washoe County School District, and also Mr. Al Rogers. No, I'm sorry. Just Mr. Etchart. I'm reading ahead. Mr. Etchart, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Again, Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer for the Washoe County School District. Now, the good news is the community's asked many times to kind of hear this presentation because they're really interested in what's going on with the school district since the passage of WC1. The bad news is that a lot of you have heard this before, so I'm going to try to go really quick today because I know that you've heard a lot of this information. So I'm going to kind of jump right in. We'll talk about our current conditions, where we are as a school district, our funding that we now have, and what the future of Washoe County School District is, the current projects we're working on, and also the future projects. And then please, though, slow me down if you want to ask any questions. So where we are now, unfortunately, we're still overcrowded. Some of our schools are severely overcrowded. And we're going to have to continue utilizing some of these portable trailer classrooms for the foreseeable future, or at least in the short term. But now, thankfully, we have a plan that ultimately we're going to get rid of these, or at least update them. So with growth, we don't know exactly, where or when growth is going to happen, but we know it's here. And we have to be able to be prepared to respond to growth. And we're working closely with our partners, including the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, on projected growth and how that relates to our enrollment at our existing schools. And we also have, obviously, our school repair needs. As we said during WC1, we have almost $250 million of critical repair needs. We have an older school district, and we need a minimum of $20 million a year just to keep our existing schools operating. Now, this problem didn't occur overnight, and it's not going to be solved overnight, but now we have a plan of action to deal with this. And I want to talk about transparency really quickly, because all the information we talk about in our school district is available on our data gallery. And you can go to our website, and you can see all of the individual school repair needs at every one of our schools. You can click on any school, see all the projects that are needed, You can see a description of the projects, you can see a cost estimate, and even see a picture of the most needed critical repairs at all of our schools. And going forward, as we start doing all of these projects, you're going to see every bid for every school. You'll see who the low bidder was, the second, third, and fourth bidders. So we're really trying our best to have accountability and transparency to the community. Something else we've just launched here in the last couple of months is WCSDbuilding.com. Now this is going to be all the latest information on our schools, time-lapse pictures and progress and interviews, all the information you want to see on our schools. So when we talk about accountability and transparency, when we look at those items in black, these are the ones we've always had. Annual independent financial audits, we have what's required by Nevada revised statutes, the oversight panel for school facilities, we have our board of trustees, but now we've added those in red. The data gallery, which I showed you, the WCSDbuilding.com, and really importantly, the Capital Funding Protection Committee. This is a group of 11 individuals in the community, 6 elected officials, 5 community members. Every project, whether it's repairing a roof or building a new school, first goes to the Capital Funding Protection Committee. They make the recommendation to our Board of Trustees. So you add all that together, I don't know of a school district in the country that has anything greater for accountability and transparency than the Washoe County School District. So going forward, the funding, what we now have, all we can really say for WC1 is thank you to the Washoe County community for your steadfastness and your commitment to education. Now we feel we have a sustainable source of funding to build the new schools that this community so desperately needs. I want to stress these funds can only be used to build schools, repair schools, and renovate schools. They cannot be used for teacher salaries or aides or bus drivers or anything else. This is to build, repair, and renovate schools. So what's WC1 mean to us? Well, it means these things that we talked about during the WC1 campaign. We're going to keep up and start getting caught up on our critical repairs in our schools. We're going to avoid double sessions. That's really important. We're going to avoid double sessions in our high schools. We're ultimately going to get off the multi-track year-round calendar at elementary schools. Now we have several schools going on to that calendar next year, but as we build these new elementary schools, we'll be getting off that calendar. Again, we're going to get rid of those oldest portable trailers, and we're going to make significant renovations to our older schools. Now this is really an important slide to us because this is what was approved by the public. The Public Schools Overcrowding Repair Needs Committee, 15 individuals from throughout the community came up with this list of needs for the Washoe County School District. This is what was put on the ballot. 3 new high schools, 3 new middle schools, 9 new elementary schools, significant renovations. This is what was put on the ballot, this is what was passed, and this is our marching orders. So far, we've allocated $90 million toward this list. And this is basically the property tax revenues that we have currently. We will start actually receiving the new sales tax revenues next month. All $90 million goes directly against the projects that were approved by the public. So specifically, again, we're going to put $20 million a year, as we said, toward our school repair projects. High schools. Well, we're going to talk about the first one's under construction right now, which is Demonte Ranch High School, 22 new classrooms at Demonte Ranch High School to keep that school off of going to a double session calendar. We also have 2 other high schools that are very growth dependent, but one in Cold Springs and one in the South McCarran Butler Ranch area. We are negotiating for land for both of those high school projects, but again, we will not build them until they are needed for student enrollment. We're obviously going to talk about Wild Creek and the Career and Technical Academy at Hug in the next item. The last one is we're going to purchase property around Sparks High School so that ultimately in the 10-year plan, we can expand the existing Sparks High School into a full-size comprehensive high school. Right now, we're in the process of designing what the high school of the 21st century is going to look like. We're doing the educational specifications with our educational community and also members of the Truckee Meadows who are on that committee to look at what the new high school is going to look like. It's been 20 years since we've built a high school, so a lot has changed in that time period. Middle schools. This is really where we get the biggest bang for the buck as we go forward and try to really catch up. A lot of these initial projects are us trying to catch up on our overcrowding needs that we have right now before we can actually start talking about growth. By moving sixth grade into the middle school model, so 6th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th will be the new middle school model, and pre-K through 5th grade will be in the elementary school model. By building these new middle schools, we relieve overcrowding not only at the middle schools, but also at a lot of elementary schools. So we have 2 new middle schools that are currently under design, one in Sun Valley, one in the Spanish Springs area. We have a very aggressive target date to open both of those schools in August of 2019. And since we don't even control the land on those, I can tell you that's a very aggressive date, but we are working as hard as we can to make that a reality. Then hopefully 1 year later, we'll follow with another middle school in the Arrow Creek area. Now, unlike the high schools where we're really starting with a new educational model, we have a fantastic model to start with when it comes to middle schools, and that's DePoli Middle School. If you've been to that school, it's really a beautiful school. I think it's a school to last. It's actually one of our least expensive middle schools to build. When you look at inflation compared to our other middle schools, this is one of our least expensive to build. It's also one of our least expensive to operate because of all the sustainability features that was put into this middle school. It's also on the smallest footprint of any middle school we have. We have also now reached out to the academic staff and the architects, the building community, to say, how can we even build this school even better? So this is kind of a school to me that really should be the standard of what we build in the Washoe County School District. This is where you have community and neighborhood pride. These are the kinds of schools I think can really turn a community. This is where students want to go to school. This is where you want to have after-school activities, whether Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or anything else. These are exciting projects, I believe, for the Truckee Meadows. Elementary schools. Well, our most overcrowded schools right now, Double Diamond Elementary School and Brown Elementary School. We knew that, so we're opening up hopefully a new South Meadows area elementary school also in August of 2019 in the Bella Vista subdivision. And then you're going to see 8 more elementary schools following. Again, growth dependent. You'll probably see the next one, North Valley, Spanish Springs area, then the other 7 coming as we need them. So support services, a couple things. As we build these new schools, as more students come, we obviously have to feed these children. We have to transport these children. So we're going to be expanding our nutrition services center and also looking for more transportation yards. Right now we have buses almost parked on top of buses, it seems like. But the one I really want to stress this morning is the core school investment. This was done by the Public Schools Overcrowding Repair Needs Committee. They allocated $50 million toward our core schools. We don't want to be just building new suburban schools and forgetting about our inner core schools. We want every child to have the same experience in the classroom. So as we design these new schools, we're going to take those educational specifications and compare them with what we have in our existing core schools. And that $50 million is going to go toward making sure, again, that all classrooms have that same experience for the children, or the children have the same experience in those classrooms. Lastly, we've given you a handout for the Washoe County School District Infrastructure Plan. This right now is our 10-year plan going forward. This shows specific projects, the ones that have the red stars, that's actually our target dates of when we hope to open these schools. Then you see the planned projects that have names to them behind that we haven't identified target dates yet. And then you'll see the future projects when it starts getting down to elementary school 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, those are growth related. But I can tell you that we're right now in negotiations for property for all of these schools. So we're very excited about that. And I hope you can see through this that in the 6+ months it's just happened since WC1 was passed in November, it's been an amazing effort, I think, by our staff to try to get all these projects going. And so we're very excited as a school district to start working on these projects and get them built. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Etchart. Any questions from the board members at this time in regards to WC1? Seeing none? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Etchart. We will close that and move on to item E22, which is a presentation and discussion of proposed Wild Creek project to be located at current Wild Creek Golf Course location. Mr. Etchart.
See if I can figure out the technology here. You see that?
Okay. So we have today with us, we have Mr. Pete Etchart and Mr. Al Rogers, and as I'm gonna help start this off, this presentation. So the Wild Creek project, this is obviously a specific specific slide and PowerPoint presentation for the RSCVA board. This was a presentation that was given earlier in the month at the May 1st concurrent meeting amongst 5 entities, which was Reno, the City of Reno, City of Sparks, Washoe County Commission, the Washoe County School District, and also at that time the RSCVA was invited to those. Unfortunately, we did not have a quorum of that board of the RSCVA, but the other 4 entities were able to conduct this meeting. So that's why we were having this meeting here for you today. So the idea is to share Wild Creek with the community and introduce the idea and the intent of the potential of this project. What we'll do is we'll introduce the stakeholders today and discuss those. We will have a brief project overview from Mr. Etchart and what that financing framework would look like, kind of the project timeline, and then we'll wrap that presentation up with some questions. We do have, obviously, Mr. Etchart from the school district here to present, and we also have Mr. Al Rogers, our Director of Management Services from the county, to discuss any county questions as well as it relates to the project. So first and foremost, let me point out the stakeholders. As this is a regional project, this involves the City of Reno, the City of Sparks, Washoe County School District, and RSCVA. All of these 5 entities do play a major role within this project and how that project, if this project is to come to fruition, every participant of these entities will have a discussion or be able to participate in that discussion as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Etchart for a project overview of what the project is designed to be, what the design will look like.
Thank you,
Mr.
Etchart.
Etchart.
Thank you, Chairman Lucy. So at this time, I want to stress that this project layout is conceptual in nature. We are just starting the process of exactly what all this is going to look like. And the reason for that really is that we're trying to control the message with this.
and that's it.
When we initially started meeting with stakeholders on this project, we realized that there's a lot of work to do. Whenever it comes to traffic or all the other issues that have been brought up forward today, we're just starting that process. The configuration of the various projects and uses will definitely change as we proceed further with planning and engineering on this project. We've hired Wood Rogers' team to actually do this initial layout, which we'll kind of be talking about today. But again, it's still conceptual in nature, and we're just now reaching out to all the different agencies to really see what this could be. So we'll start with some of the definite uses on this site and that we foresee. There's 2 main ones. Obviously, from the school district standpoint, we want to build a high school. But whenever we talk about the high school, we talk about 2 different high school projects. We talk about the high school at Wild Creek, which will relieve overcrowding in our northern high schools. And through changes in our current attendance zones, we basically instantly gain about 1,000 seats. Right now, the Hug High School is about 1,400 students. We envision the new high school at Wild Creek being about 2,500 students. And then as we repurpose the existing Hug High School into a career and technical academy, we will ultimately have up to about 1,400 students. So you can see we gain overall about 2,400 students at these sites. Now the construction of Wild Creek, as I said, provides us the opportunity to renovate and repurpose the existing Hug High School. And I want to just say from a communication standpoint that when I say Wild Creek or I say Hug, that's a location. I don't know what the final names of these schools will be. It's strictly just right now a location. We have a separate board policy and committee as far as school naming goes. So to talk a little bit about the high school at Wild Creek. We have selected a design team to actually look at what the new high school for the 21st century will be. That will be not only at the Wild Creek site, but our other high schools that I mentioned. So we are in the process, as I said, doing the educational specifications for the 21st century high school. That will then become schematic design. That will then become final design. We've reached out to the community and the educators to be part of this process. We actually had our first meeting of that group on Monday. Now, some specific things about the high school we envision at Wild Creek. One is, again, this is conceptual, but the pad that's shown there is basically looking at the high schools we have right now, whether it's North Valleys or Spanish Springs, and we just added basically 20% to the size so we make sure we have plenty of room to build this new high school. One of the unique features that we plan on seeing at this school would be an expanded auditorium that would double as a boardroom. Anybody that's been to the Washoe County School District boardroom realizes we really don't have a boardroom, so we envision this being where we would have future board meetings. It's a great location, access, and parking. Again, we also want to talk about two high school projects, the Career and Technical Academy at Hug. Now, there's been a lot of past studies done of what Hug could look like and how we could renovate Hug. We're going to look at all of those options. The Public Schools Overcrowding and Repair Needs Committee allocated funds directly to this repurposing project, and we're very excited about that. And basically, I want to say it's really continuing the great work that's already been started at Hug High School. The Health and Human Services Academy, programs in sports medicine, commercial baking, human development. The bottom line is we want to provide more opportunities for our students. This is going to work in conjunction with the Academy of Arts, Career, and Technology. If you've been to AACT, it's a fantastic program. It's always got a waiting list of people who want to go there. The majority of the students who go to AACT actually come from the North Valleys. So bringing another Career and Technical Academy online is going to provide great opportunities for our students. Dr. Dana Ryan, the head of our Career and Technical Education group, is really going to be looking at what are the careers for the next 10, 20 years. What are the employment opportunities for our students? How can we really do workforce development for all these amazing companies that are coming to the Truckee Meadows in northern Nevada? So again, this is going to work in conjunction with the AACT, and I couldn't even tell you today what are the programs that are all going to be held at this new Hug campus. But one thing as I say, they're going to work together with AACT. We actually, with programs, also transportation. We hope to have a feeder system for transportation. Right now, if you get to your home high school, we take you to the IB program at Worcester, or we take you to AACT. We also envision transporting students so that every student has an opportunity for a career and technical education. We will transport them to the Hug campus. We also are excited that because the existing Hug High campus has sports, that we will be able to integrate sports into our career and technical education. Right now, one of the biggest drawbacks of AACT is a student might say, I'd love to go there for the academic purposes, but I really want to play volleyball or soccer or whatever. Now we hope to have both of those schools, AACT and the Career and Technical Academy at Hug, work together and be able to participate in sports.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Al Rogers to the podium. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Chair Lucy, board members, CEO DeLone. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, for the record, Al Rogers, Office of the County Manager, Washoe County. I guess before I jump in on these slides, I would like to emphasize to Chair Lucy and also to Mr. Etchart that idea of collaboration and conceptual. We as Washoe County have come into this project with those two key monikers, if you will, to drive us as we are now. So as you've seen in Mr. Etchart's piece of this, and you'll see moving forward, this really is a collaborative effort and really is a concept. And as we go through those slides, as we talk about golf and the other potential, I hope you keep that in mind in terms of where we're at in the process with that conceptual. So short term with Wild Creek Golf Course, it's the county's concept to continue those operations as is as a 27-hole golf course through the end of 2018. As indicated, and Mr. Etchart can talk about that more in terms of their timeline, they are looking at a late 2018, early 2019 breaking ground of the new high school. So Washoe County would operate it as is, and starting again as presented on May 1st this summer. That's this summer being something that is a very conceptual and very fluid, if you will, moving forward. The long term, moving forward with the golf course, and what you see, and maybe a little brief explanation of the golf course concept as you see in this map, what has been taken is really just the existing layout of, let's say, 9 holes on that portion of the property. So in no way does this represent what that final golf product would look like as we move forward. Again, it's Washoe County's intent to have a golf product as part of this project. We want that golf product to serve the community best As we've indicated here, First Tee is an excellent opportunity to partner with in this concept of a 9-hole golf course, but it could have a lot of other factors to it. Obviously, we'll need to replace and invest in new infrastructure to support that 9-hole golf course, but really with a lot of community input, and I think as identified from golfers and Mr. Mazzaferri earlier, a lot of discussion into what that golf product would look like for the long term. Again, moving into some possible projects, these are things that through the school district, through a variety of partners that have been talked about in this community, but these again are very conceptual and just ideas in terms of what could happen on this particular piece of property. So the community use projects, and I'll hit on some of these, and Mr. Etchart can talk about those tied to the school district, but you've got a potential athletic training facility, a pre-kindergarten facility, community center, natatorium possibly, a linear park, and an outdoor learning center. Jumping into the athletic training facility, I think as identified in the high school, they have somewhat of a typical prototype in terms of what those athletic fields that support a high school look like. This would be in addition to, and again, could serve a variety of purposes, including an athletic training facility for any type of team that were to come in. It also would serve for those regional or national type of events, again, that can be drawn into this area. Again, this is conceptual, showing some flat fields, but that could be, again, a variety of different ideas in terms of what is it that would draw and add to the value of this project.
So with the location of the Wild Creek project, it's a fantastic site for us to look at the opportunity to build a pre-kindergarten facility. Being near two high schools, being near the Truckee Meadows Community College and the University of Nevada really provides us a great opportunity as we need more and more pre-K facilities in the Truckee Meadows.
And then moving into the community center natatorium, we as Washoe County know the other entities have always kept in mind community needs through community centers, and aquatics certainly, as we know, are always at top of mind. I know from the school district and from the community, not necessarily a lack of, but certainly some new and revitalized type of aquatic projects and community centers that would serve the public and that growing public as it comes into Reno. So again, these are just ideas that could be offered on this particular property, but a community center and natatorium in some concept is an idea. You want to talk about the linear park? Sure.
So one of the ideas too, as far as this project, would be having a linear park. We're showing a 1.5-mile walking trail right now going around the site. We also thought this would be a great option. This kind of came in from the community of having an outdoor learning center actually on the site. So these are just, again, more opportunities that could potentially be done at this Wild Creek project.
And I guess just overall, again, conceptual, collaborative, it is very dependent upon community input, all of those pieces that were aforementioned. Again, there's a lot of research, investigation to go into these in terms of what that parcel offers and really what are those amenities that this community desires and can afford. Financing framework, just real quick, we are looking at, again, going back to the first slide, if Washoe County were to assume operation of the golf course for that short term, at some point, once we identify what that property would look like in terms of the school district needs, the school district would purchase that property from Washoe County, and in turn, Washoe County would make that commitment to reinvest back into that parcel. Obviously, with the golf course, as I mentioned earlier, that configuration and the need for those support facilities and possibly a repurposing of that in terms of a teaching facility will take additional dollars to do that. So any of those dollars invested by the school district would be put back into the property.
So the location of the Wild Creek project is fantastic for us for a high school. It does several things for us. One is it not only creates a full-size comprehensive high school in that area, it also helps to keep communities together. And what I mean by that is, like right now, Sun Valley has been split for many years to different middle schools, different high schools. One of our goals in the Washoe County School District is to keep schools together, keep children going to the same schools together. So by building the new middle school in Sun Valley, we want to keep those students together. By building Wild Creek High School, we would see all of the students from the Sun Valley area be able to go to one high school. That relieves Spanish Springs High School. Now we know that there's a lot of challenges. A lot of those were brought up today. When I talk about controlling the message, our thought was we want to make sure the community knows that we're looking at this project, we want the community input, but we don't want to be reacting to messages. So now that we've actually gone forward and say we are interested in building this, now we're reaching out to all the different entities to say, okay, what could this actually be? Again, it's a fantastic location, but it's got a lot of challenges. And some of those were brought up by the public today. We've got water affluent. We know the soils in that area are not good. We have traffic we have to look at. We've already met with the FAA about air issues and, airplane issues and lighting and location and soundproofing of schools. We know that, there's a dam above that and we have drainage issues. We realize the engineering issues involved with this site, but we haven't seen anything that actually we don't think we can overcome in regards to this site. So to talk about the anticipated project timeline, we hired two firms initially. One was Wood Rogers, as I showed you, to come up with kind of a concept of what this would look like, and we also hired a firm to kind of look at a timeline. We also then sat down with the design community. We sat down with some of the contractors in the area of how fast can we build this school that is so needed. The first point is August 2017, we talked about transfer of the property, but really we don't need the property in our hands. What we need is just access to the property to actually start doing geotechnical work and looking at the site itself. The real numbers come in, as Mr. Rogers said, December 2018, our timeline is when we would break ground on the high school. And then the timelines really get great. It's June 2021, Hug High School remodel opens. And begins. So when the last student basically walks out of Hug High School in June of 2021, we basically have about 14 months to do the repurposing and remodeling of the Hug High School campus into a career and technical academy. In August of 2021, the high school at Wild Creek opens. So all the students who are going to Hug would now be going to Wild Creek. And then the next year, 1 year later, the Career and Technical Academy at Hug opens. So that's our timeline right now, and as Mr. Rogers said, it would be the golf course would stay in the existing shape it's in right now, we anticipate, for the next 2 years. With that, we'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. And this time, before we have open questions, we do have public comment, so I'd like to open public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for questions and discussion. Actually, and I do have Miss Angie Taylor here. Miss Taylor? President of would you please, would you like to make a comment at this time? Sure. I know you came especially for this, so thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Lucy, and to the members of the board. Thank you, first of all, for this opportunity to address the group, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about what we think is a really, really exciting time in the Washoe County School District. As Mr. Eschert said, thanks to the really generosity of the citizens of this community, we are building schools, and we're excited about building schools. In that, we know there are a lot of challenges that go forth, and our job, I'm saying our job, but it's really his job, is to decide where those schools need to go. And part of the challenge we have with schools is schools take a lot of land, especially high schools, because of all the ancillary fields, supports, and because of the size of those schools. An opportunity that we have before us today to take a look at the land that could potentially be there for us at Wild Creek Golf Course creates a unique opportunity because we don't have a lot of space within the core part of our community. So when you look at a place such as Wild Creek, it allows us to do those things that are important, keep families together, keep schools together, get into the part of a community that really does need more space, need a new school, and need a new opportunity. One of the things that excites us most as the president of the board is this is an opportunity for us to continue to work together. The collaboration is really, really exciting. When you look at all of the logos of all of us, all of the entities there, this is a time for us to come together, just as we've already begun to do with the passage of WC1. Many of you were involved in that. We're supportive of that, and we thank you for that. This is another step in that vein, coming together to do not just what's best for schools, because I think I know the golfers have concerns, and I feel you on that, because it doesn't mean you don't like schools. I get that, and I think the woman said that earlier. I mean, to come together and do something for schools, it's also to come together and to do something for the region. I mean, this is going to be a beautiful facility that meets a lot of needs, that really speaks to all of the jurisdictions, all of the entities that are a part of that. So we're excited about the potential, we're excited about the opportunity, and so I would come today just to urge your support, full consideration. A lot of work needs to be done, but I think it's really, really important that we continue to work together on solving those problems as we move forward.
Thank you very much, President Taylor. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, I have Araceli Martinez signed in.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Araceli Martinez. And I'm here to represent my nephews, my cousins, and my community, especially those that are not able to attend this meeting because they are the working class that can't even get time off to represent their own children. As I know too well, as my mother could never attend anything because she needed to work all day as a maid and house cleaning. I have 5 different extended family members' households in the immediate area of this project. But to me, they're just my family, and this project would deeply impact them. I am also representing myself as I am a part of this community in the Washoe County School District system, having attended Elmcrest, Peavine, Hunter Lake, Aguilar, Sparks Middle, McQueen, and Worcester throughout my life, so I know firsthand that we need to improve and expand the K-12 education system to serve our children who are our future of this community. I understand that there is a great community that is able to afford and have the time to go golfing at Wild Creek Golf Course. But I also know that there are many more children and adolescents that need more schools for an opportunity to be able to prepare themselves for a college education to better our community. We need to take into consideration the overall benefits to our community to improve the quality and equitable education that our children deserve. This project would benefit our whole community. It would be beneficial to our students attending this future high school, as there would still be a Wild Creek Golf Course right next door. The adolescents that attend this future school will grow up knowing about, learning the game, and even playing and loving it to continue the sport and legacy. I am in total support of this project. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Martinez. Next I have Stephanie Hanna.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Hanna, and I am here in favor of the proposed sale of Wild Creek Golf Course to Washoe County School District. As a mom of 3 young children under the age of 9 in Northwest Reno, I believe that this new school at its proposed location is absolutely vital to my children's continued educational success. From all I've heard and seen, this proposed location looks pretty great. Wild Creek is at the epicenter of the overcrowding among our high schools. The new school would relieve overcrowding at 3 area high schools, including the one my children are zoned for. The new school could house 2,500 students, and it could be built quickly. I imagine that it must be extremely difficult to find suitable large acreage for a new high school, so I think this location is sort of our answer. I believe voters in Washoe County were quite clear in 2016 that they wanted new schools built and they wanted them quickly. I would like to add that there's a 2016 report by the National Golf Foundation that indicated the number of golfers playing on courses is on the decline. So while the number of golfers decline, the number of students, especially as pointed out in the previous presentation, so the number of students currently in or coming on into our district is on the rise. A new school will ultimately serve tens of thousands of students, much more than the number of people currently served by the golf course. I urge the RSCVA board to vote yes on a letter of intent for the sale of this land for my children, all 64,000 children in the school district, and truly for the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I have next Christy Sheltra signed in.
Hello, thank you for having public comment on the proposed Wild Creek High School. My name is Christy Sheltra. I am a resident of Somerset in Northwest Reno. Many of you might know my husband Ryan, who is the general manager of the Bonanza Casino. We have both reviewed this proposal, and we are in high support in favor of the letter of intent being approved. We have two middle school boys who currently attend Billinghurst Middle School. In August, our oldest son will be a freshman at McQueen High School. Last night, he played in his first summer ball baseball game, and it was very exciting. But I want you to know there were two teams with 17 players per team, 2 players shy of having enough boys for 4 teams. There were also 7 boys cut from this team. This is an example of the overcrowding we are facing at McQueen High School, and my child hasn't even attended one day of school in that high school yet. This is just a summer ball team. I wanted to give you this example of the overcrowding. Speaking of that, I campaigned feverishly for WC1. I spent days from last spring through the election day going door to door, writing postcards, hanging signs, and was responsible for a highly successful social media campaign that you probably saw in your Facebook feeds. I campaigned day and night, hundreds of hours for this, and I'd urge the RSCVA to approve the letter of intent for the new Wild Creek High School. This plan needs to be set in motion to alleviate the overcrowding we are facing in Northwest Reno. All around my community in the northwest side of town, you'll see construction and new apartments and new homes being built now, currently. Where will these children go to school? I feel it is important to see WC1 through and executed as I represent the voice of the majority. I'd also like to add that golf is a luxury and education is a necessity. I am also a golfer and do support the collaboration with the 9 holes remaining on the site of the new high school. Lastly, I think it's important for you to know that both my sons will have graduated before the new high school opens, so the benefit of this new high school will not be reaped by my family personally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shelter. All right, seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the board at this time. Questions from the board members to Mr. Etchart or Mr. Rogers in regards to the project specifically? Mr. Vice Chair.
So I've got tons of questions, guys, and you heard them at the last concurrent meeting. The one thing that's a little disturbing is the intent. You know, I just lived through the Legends project in Sparks. The intent was to make that a tourism destination 51% of the time. Well, we have an intent to keep a golf course, and we have an intent to put in all these other things. I'd like to see more of a guarantee there, because if your intent is not necessarily going to happen. So I'd like to see more of the intent turned into guarantees that we're going to see some of these things that happen at the golf course. It's going to make a huge difference for those people that live around there. We're affecting around 700 houses that live in the village green that only have 2 ways in and out. of their property, which is adjacent to the proposed high school. There's just a ton of work to do. The flight path is a big deal. The traffic is a huge deal. You know, the Mormon church and the Lutheran church want to add another lane up there. There's a car wash scheduled to go on Wedekind and McCarran. You know, signalizing, coordinating, all that. I mean, we've got a long ways to go, and you have a very, very aggressive schedule. Not to mention that Sparks is owed about $1.2 million still on the effluent piping for the bonds. And as of today, I believe the water is titled to Sparks until that $1.2 million is paid off. And I'm going to ask the attorney too, who owns the water rights at this point? Do you think, Mr. Kennedy?
So we've got our water rights consultant here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the water rights to Wild Creek, or at least the vast majority of the water rights at Wild Creek, are currently deeded to the city of Sparks under the effluent agreement. The effluent agreement provides that upon the expiration or termination of that agreement, the water rights are deeded back to RSCVA/Washoe County.
Okay, so who owns the water rights? Washoe County or the RSCVA?
Again, Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer. Those are some of the questions that I do not have an answer for today. Actually, we're taking a design proposal to our Board of Trustees on June 6th to actually have the contract in place to start answering these questions. Again, this is a very aggressive schedule, but we wanted to go to the community and say, this is the intent that we have. We're going to start spending a lot of hard-earned, you know, WC1 taxpayer money on this project, but we don't want to do so without really, you know, involving everybody in the community. We want to make sure this is a project the community wants. This is a project that is going to take a lot of engineering design time. And so we're going to start answering those questions. We have started having conversations with the FAA, and basically, to answer your question on that, their two biggest concerns, one was on the lights for the field. We've addressed that. We've done the same thing at Worcester to make sure that we have dark sky compliant lights. The second one was on soundproofing for the school. We will work on, obviously, soundproofing our school, which we've done to several other of our schools in the flight path. The third one is the location of the school itself. We're far enough away from the airport itself that we do not have any height restrictions on this site, except for possibly the light structures on the football fields, but we're going to work with that. So we're having those conversations when it comes to the water rights and the effluent agreement. We recognize those are issues. We've had our initial meetings with the city of Sparks to start going through all those issues. And again, this is conceptual right now. We're going to work through every engineering issue and hopefully be able to come back and tell the community what we have found in all of these. We wanted to make sure that we had this out so we weren't reacting to a message by saying it gets leaked that we're going to build a high school there, then we're reacting to a message. We wanted to be forthright and say this is a school we want to, you know, pursue, and then start having all these great conversations that how can we make this school the best we can make it.
So I guess then I just wanted, for the folks that want to save Wild Creek, there has to be some kind of guarantee, I think, in there that we're going to keep the golf course. And it's only fair. I see the need for the high school, but I also see the need for the open space in the golf course. And since that sits right in the middle of Ward 2 and Sparks, which happens to be my ward, I'm very much in tune with the neighbors and what's going on there. So it's very, very important to me. But it's also important, I think, for the RSCVA. You know, the RSCVA is losing money on that course. And at some point in the future, hopefully it does turn around where it won't lose money, but I also, like I said, see the value of that new high school there too. So I'm kind of torn right now, but I'm also going to be very diligent in making sure that all these questions are answered because it affects my ward in particular. And those people that I live with and go see at the grocery store that love to come up to me in the grocery store and say, hey, Ed, what's going on with this? So I just want you guys to be aware that as I said before, I'm going to be very diligent in keeping this up. But if you could help me out with the first question.
Board Member Lawson, through the chair, to address the golf course, you know, again, I won't stand up here and speak on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, but I believe that there is a commitment to offering a golf product as part of this project overall. I think there also is a commitment not to continue to run the golf course as its current configuration beyond any short-term time. So To your point, yes, golf being a part of that, I believe, is a commitment of Washoe County to run it in some way, shape, or form. Again, what we identified here was a 9-hole configuration. That would be probably at the minimum what that golf product would be. But I think Washoe County, as part of this and being a partner in this, that is our one piece that we are committed moving forward to is managing and offering a golf product to this community, not just to keep the current golfers at Wild Creek, but really to offer a product throughout this community for young and old.
And just as an aside, on your drawing, your football field is aligned incorrectly. It needs to be north-south.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Hicks.
So, obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done. I personally love the idea of the collaboration and the letter of intent to at least look at what's going on and what we can do with that property. I guess my concern a little bit is, was there, I guess when WC1 was approved, was there a plan for a high school as part of the budget along with the proceeds? And I guess I would guess that the Washoe County School District has an idea of what a typical high school might cost, including all the improvements that you've seen with the Poli Middle School. But I guess where I'm going is that at some point, is it too expensive? Does the project become too expensive to build a high school? Because in effect, what you're doing is building much more than just a high school. You're putting in all these other facilities and the parks, and I love the idea, but I would hope that the Washoe County School District at some point would say, through the research that's still ahead of us, that this is just too expensive of a project. We've got to take care of water rights. We've got to deal with the soils. We've definitely got to approach traffic. We as committee members have heard a ton of comments that we need to address not just the traffic in the future, but the traffic that's going around the property there. So the one slide that says the transfer of the property goes to the Washoe County School District, I appreciate your comments about it's not a transfer, it's just more access to figure out if the project goes forward. I think that's fine. Transferring the property that soon scares me because I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. That sounds like the banker in you, right? First of all, I want to say thank you for being transparent. This is the first time that I've actually seen the presentation, so it was pretty interesting. We were actually out of town pitching to Outdoor Retailer whenever I believe you did this last presentation. So, so thank you for the transparency. I guess some of the things that I'd like to know, what studies are you planning and when, such as environmental impact studies, economic studies, traffic studies? Can you give me a little background on that?
Yes. As I indicated, we're going to have a scope of work going in front of our Board of Trustees on June 6th for a comprehensive scope as far as looking at all of these issues with Wood Rogers engineering firm. And that's going to be a comprehensive of beginning the traffic work, soils work, all the different aspects that have kind of really been brought up today. And it's going to continue. We're going to add to it as we hear more and more issues from either the community or from our public partners in this project. So we're just starting a lot of that work. Like I said, we've had initial conversations. I haven't seen anything yet that says absolutely can't do it. That's why we wanted to meet with the FAA, right up front, to make sure there wasn't any issues that would absolutely just kill the project so we don't even start spending taxpayer money. But we haven't heard any of those yet, so again, on June 6th, we'll have a scope of work going to our Board of Trustees for approval that will really start the hardcore engineering, design, planning work on this site. One thing I'll address really quick too as far as the cost. This project, a high school in the Wild Creek area, was shown in the Public Schools Overcrowding Repair Needs Committee group as far as the list of projects they had. The cost is a concern. If you want my biggest concern of all of our projects going forward right now, and I'm sure it's the same issue you're all facing in any kind of public works projects right now, the costs are going up. So a brownfield project or building on an existing site is always going to be more expensive than building, in a new area, in a suburban area where you have virgin ground. It's always going to be more expensive. There's always more issues to have to, to deal with. But that's just part of construction right now. We know we have a labor shortage. We know prices are going up. We're going to have to just work through those issues. And still, we need to build schools, though, that are going to last 50 to 100 years. We don't replace schools in the Washoe County School District, so we don't want to ever shortchange our students in the future by building something that's not a great product. But, you know, lots of great questions today and lots of great comments from the public. We're going to be working through all of those.
Any further questions? Mr. Murdoch.
Have is a couple of questions, really. When you're dealing with the water rights and you've got obviously the sewage bonds and the land, is there any, just a fiduciary responsibility for the RSCVA, is there any, should the RSCVA be compensated in any way, and would the school district be prepared to do that, or the county? How's that work?
Board Member Murdoch, through the chair. It's a great question, and I think it's one that is still unanswered in terms of what is that fiduciary responsibility of Washoe County. I think is brought up earlier, question of, you know, who owns the water rights, who owns the land, and having those answered and having some definitive positions, I think will lead us to that in terms of what that fiduciary responsibility looks like moving forward in the terms of Washoe County. Certainly on the front end, as we move forward, we would not necessarily like to get into the golf business. We recognize that that golf business right now is a loss for the RSCVA. We don't intend to run it long term in that same model. So again, I think those are considerations that also factor into the overall financial fiduciary responsibility or relationship. So I guess my short answer would be, yeah, more information is needed to make that determination.
Thank you. I still have a couple more questions. I'm the chairman of the Airport Authority, and I know all about the FAA rules and regulations and appreciate that you guys are starting that due diligence now. However, we are going to do and get more flights in here. It's going to get a lot busier. So I just take that into account for you all. If you are going to mitigate sound, there's going to be more and more flights, freight flights. I know that because we've seen it in our studies, and as you all know, the airport's up 10% almost in every aspect every month now. So with all this things that are happening in our community, that's kind of an important, I think you factor that in as well if you.
Real quick, just on the financial part from the school district, I just want the public to understand, as far as the Washoe County School District, if this project goes forward and we purchase land, we're going to do a site evaluation. We're going to identify actually the parcel we would need to build the high school, and then we do an appraisal, and we can only pay up to the appraised value for any parcel of land. So that's how it works for us. That money would go to the owner of the property, and again, I'm not the expert on whether, you know, the RSCVA county issue, but that's how the school district would pay. We pay our fees for the property itself, and that's really kind of it.
Also, if you did repurpose certain golf holes, is there a way that you would get with a golf designer that may come up with, if you kept 9 holes, would you use 2 different tee boxes to have it play different? Is there going to be some options there if you're going to really plan it right so that the locals can still play golf and still enjoy something of that golf course?
Thank you for the question, Board Member Murdoch. Absolutely. We would retain a golf consultant. We would retain, obviously, the community. I think is brought up by Mr. Mazzaferri. We would go slow in this process in terms of looking at what the configuration is now and what is the golf product that's needed here in this community right now. There are 11 golf courses right now, and as also explained or brought forward earlier by Mr. Mazzaferri, we have had a reduction of 99 holes. So I'm not going to stand up here and debate whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, but I think moving forward, we as Washoe County in this model and in this project concept would look at that golf piece being very important, but very important in terms of what it produces. It's 9 holes. There are models now that use 6 holes, training centers. You know, there's a variety of options out there that I think could give us a golf product that would be viable for all.
Thank you both.
Mr. Araceli.
Great presentation, thank you, and it sounds like a great project. Has there been any consideration given to all the capital improvements that the RSCVA has put in Wild Creek over the years, which amount to millions of dollars, along with, it's my understanding that RSCVA also owns the water rights, which have a very high value also. But so has any consideration been given to capital improvements, buildings, on and on and on. As to reimbursement or some kind of fair consideration?
Again, thank you for the question, Board Member Araceli, through the chair. Yes, to the extent that we have considered it. I think moving forward in terms of Washoe County's position, there is more to discuss and more to look into in terms of that relationship with RSCVA and Washoe County as it relates not just to the land and not just the waters brought earlier, but as you point out, the capital and the infrastructures that have been improved over the many years. So to answer your question, the answer is yes, we've looked at the consideration. Have we looked at what that looks like? No. I would tell you, again, moving forward in terms of a staff recommendation to our board, we would look at getting into this particular project concept with little or no consideration for that. Again, the consideration I think is moving forward with a community project that is very viable, but certainly to your point, all of those need to be discussed and consideration needs to be determined and finalized.
Yes, because it concerns me, because I've heard a lot about the project and the presentation, and the one thing I haven't heard a lot of in these presentations and conversations, nobody mentions the RSCVA. Seems like we're not involved, but I would think we are kind of involved.
Again, Board Member Araceli, I would like to thank specifically Mr. Rivers. We have had conversations. We've talked about it. Again, very preliminary in terms of what those infrastructure improvements would be. What are those water rights? What are those land values? So again, I think we're on the very front end of this discussion. And again, I appreciate the question and certainly want to move forward.
Because I'll make one more comment. What I'm talking about is as far as capital improvements and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are hard dollars. They came out of this organization coming through room tax dollars. And I would imagine we will get some consideration for that.
Thank you, Mr. Araceli. Any further comments from the board at this time? All right, I'd like to just make one final comment. Mr. Etchart, Mr. Rogers, thank you so much for taking your time today and presenting that presentation for us. And to Mr. Araceli's discussion and also Mr. Murdoch's discussion, this is the initial understanding, but I would agree that there is some fiduciary responsibility for us to discuss these matters and continue to look at what those costs are going forward. But I would like to reiterate that this is an initial discussion. This is the first step in many, many steps to come. But to move, to get to the finality of this result, a result of this, or whatever that may be, we need to have this first discussion, and I think that's where that's why that starts here, to hear the concerns of all the citizens and residents in the surrounding area, the concerns and needs of the community, and the concerns and needs of every entity that's involved in this as we move forward. And I would remember and urge everybody to remind themselves that this is not just a golf course and a high school. This is a community project. There's many more elements that have been proposed within this project. And then this is not just one high school. This is helping repurpose 2 high schools. This is creating the HUG, technical career and tech school, and also a new HUG high school or whatever that may be. So these are our benefits to our community, and I want to continue to urge this board to think of that as such, with also the intent of the RSCVA and what our fiduciary responsibility is, and to continue in tourism. But as a facility that continues to lose money for this board, that could be better spent in other areas, that would be something to also consider. So let's please keep an open mind. We're not going to be taking any action on this, and I thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. So we'll move on to the next item, which is now E23, and it's discussion and possible approval of a letter of intent between Washoe County School District, Washoe County, City of Sparks, City of Reno, and the Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority to cooperate in development of a new high school in Sparks, Nevada, and repurpose Proctor R. Hug High School in Reno, Nevada. So the board's going to discuss this matter at this time, but I want, with a little caveat prior to this, to moving into this, at the May 1st meeting, the concurrent meeting of all 5 entities, with the 4 entities that were available to participate with complete quorums, all 4 of those entities did vote in support of this letter of intent to pursue discussions with the school district on this project. So with that little caveat being said, I will open it up to the board for further discussion. Mr. Vice Chair.
This is a question for Mr. Kennedy. The last sentence, the last paragraph on this letter of intent, is this then, we're done after we sign this? We have no further input into the process? Other than, I mean, if we have input, it's not necessarily, they don't have to take it, but it will move forward regardless.
Sure, so
I read that.
I think a couple points. One relates to the RSCVA's general involvement and the ownership of the property. If you look on the first page, one of the recitals indicates the county owns the Wild Creek property. If we look at the deed, the county owns the property through the RSCVA. So I think the RSCVA has the ability to give some input on this and to consider its issues when it decides if it's going to sign off on conveyance of the property. I think the last paragraph in this LOI, I mean, I think the intent is all the agencies are saying at the outset, this project is something that we think we support, but there has been highlighted here today. There are a lot of issues and a lot of questions that remain to be resolved. And so I think the RSCVA entering into this letter of intent is basically the RSCVA saying it's willing to consider this, it's willing to continue the discussion, and it's, you know, it's willing to participate and direct staff to spend the time and whatever resources we need to put into it to continue to explore the project.
So that, I just want that to be clear, that we're not entering into an agreement by signing this letter of intent.
No, we're not agreeing to convey property. We're not agreeing to convey water rights. We're saying we'll be a part of the discussion going forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, would you think it was possible for Washoe County to move forward with this without our reconveyance or input?
So putting on my real estate attorney hat, if I was representing a buyer or a title company or a financing institution, I would want both parties to sign off on any conveyance just due to the way it's titled. It's titled to Washoe County, acting through the RSCVA. So in my legal opinion, I think both parties would need to somehow cooperate, whether we quit claim to the county and they deed it to the school district or whatever that process is. I think it requires RSCVA's involvement.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Araceli.
This is for Mr. Kennedy. If we vote to move forward, do we give up any rights to being reimbursed for some of the capital investments we've made there, hard dollars and et cetera?
I don't believe so, and I think we've made the record clear that this board assumes that should we move forward, that those are all discussions that will be had before any final action is taken. So before the land is conveyed, before we deal with water rights, everything's going to come back to this board for further review and discussion.
So we don't need a subject to on any agreement we reach here, right?
No.
If we agree to sign on board, we don't make it subject to being da-da-da-da.
I think at this point we are agreeing that we will participate in the discussion.
Okay.
And we will consider proposals as they're brought to us.
We don't give up any rights from potential monetary compensation.
No, not at this point.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other further discussion at this time, looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to move forward with the approval of the letter of intent as listed in E2.3.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Woods. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to take a brief recess right now. It is now 11:05. We will be back in 5 minutes at 11:10. We're going to take, I'm going to take the item, RTAA item next. So call John, get him on the, yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to need to get everybody situated. We're going to get started here. It is 11:15. I'm going to bring us back from recess. We are now back in session here at this time. What I'd like to do in the essence of time, I would like to take F3 out of order right now. And that is the appointment of a member to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Trustees to represent consumers of services provided at the airport. So at this time, do I have Mr. Farahi? Great, thanks. Please do. Mr. Farahi, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, good morning.
Okay, we can hear you lightly.
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Farahi. We can hear you. So, thank you. You're going to have to speak up as loud as you can so we can hear you, but we're going to get into this. So at this time, Mr. Kennedy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, the board is being asked to appoint an individual to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority pursuant to NRS 241.020 and Section 5, Subsection 3 of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Act. The names of the individuals being considered for appointment for the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board of Trustees by the board are Andy Worth, Vic Wowo, Andy Chapman, and Carol Chaplin. Note that as of yesterday evening, Mr. Chapman has asked that his name be withdrawn. So the board will be considering Mr. Worth, Mr. Wowo, and Ms. Chaplin. This appointment is for a 4-year term, and the appointment becomes effective July 1. With that, I will turn it back to Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. At this time, I'm going to open this up for discussion to the board. We do have Mr. Wowo here with us today. Mr. Wowo, would you like to give a presentation? We do have everybody's resumes, but I will open the floor to you if you'd like to make a presentation. All right, seeing none. So I will open this up for discussion at this time for any member. Mr. Murdoch, I see your light is on. Would you like to speak? No? Okay. All right. So the way we've gone about this in years past, we have recommended each individual board member. We will kind of do a tally. Everybody has had the 3 applicants currently in front of them. They would recommend their top choice on the record, and we'll just do a roll call vote around. And at the end of that roll call, we'll tally the names and the votes to find out who that member or a select member would be. And then after that time, we'll take a motion to approve said member for the appointment. So is there any discussion? Mr. Farahi, do you have anything you'd like to say at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that having followed Andy Worth's actions on the board of the airport authority and how well he's connected and has been active and productive in a sense of helping us to bring additional air service to our destination. And since this position can be filled for the 2nd term, and he has only served 1 term on the board, I would highly recommend as one member of the board that because of his track record, that we would afford him another term on the airport authority board to help our community to bring additional air service to our destination. I have been, again, very impressed with his effectiveness on that board, especially in the area of gaining us additional air service.
Thank you, Mr. Farahi. I appreciate those comments at this time. All right, is there any further comments from any board members? All right, seeing none. what I'm going to do is call for roll call vote. And so, Madam Clerk, if you'll go around to each board member and ask for their name submission, please.
Nat Araceli. John Farahi.
Andy Worth.
Michael Hicks. Ed Lawson. Mr. Lucy.
Carol Chapman.
Rick Murdoch. Mayor Sheeby.
Carol Chaplin. But I do want to just point out, they're interesting to see the candidates and their qualities and what they can bring to the table. I think actually a lot of these candidates all look incredibly qualified, but I would go with Carol Chaplin.
Mr. Wood. And John Vineyard. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the way I've got it counted out is that we have 7 in support of Carol Chaplin and 2 members in support of Andy Worth. Carol Chaplin would be, so at this time, I would look for a motion to appoint Carol Chaplin as the Airport Authority appointment from the RSCVA. I'll make the motion at this time. So I will move to appoint Carol Chaplin as the RSCVA appointment to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Board. Looking for a second. I have a second from Mr. Araceli and a motion from myself. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations to Ms. Chaplin in regards to her appointment to the Airport Authority. And we want to thank Mr. Andy Worth for his time that he has served as our appointment to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority, and appreciate his service for the last 4 years. All right, so we'll close out and we will move back to our regular agenda. So we are back to items E3. Mr. DeLone.
Thank you, Chairman Lucy. I'd like to take a moment just to thank Mike Larragetta, the VP of Sales. Mike's only been with us about 90 days, but he's really moved quickly and efficiently on filling some vacancies and recommending some improvements to the sales department efforts. In compliance with the strategic long-range plan, we've hired an excellent candidate, and Morgan Edwards is our local corporate sales manager. We have found a superb candidate who, for the next week or two, we cannot announce who that is, but we have found a superb candidate to fill our southeast sales position. That person will be based in Atlanta, and we have complete buy-in from the major convention hotels in town to open this office there. So that person will work remotely. And of course, Hillary Burton will start with us in California on June 5th as our Western Region Director of Sales. And in all of these cases, they're excellent candidates, and Michael, through his networking, found them. And Mike, thanks for your hard work and diligence. On May 8th, a number of us from the Convention Authority and the City of Reno, specifically Robert Chisel and Mr. Thomas, the Assistant City Manager, we went to Arlington, Texas, and met with USBC there. As many of you know, we have a contractual obligation with USBC to, in part, remodel the bowling stadium. Some of that has already been done with the repair and modernization of the HVAC system to the tune of over $3 million, whether the USBC asked us for that contribution or not. Inconsequential, we had to replace the system because of the age of the building. But we had an excellent meeting. We met with Chad Murphy, the executive director, Jason Overstreet, the deputy executive director, and also a young man by the name of Frank Wilkinson, who is the current president of USBC, and they warmly welcomed our delegation, and they galvanized their strong feelings to Reno and their desire to continue to come here even after their 2026 contractual obligation ends. So in summary, we are prepared with the city through the $2 surcharge to meet the expectations of USBC and start in January of 19 a remodel of the interior to the tune of what will most likely be around $4 million. Some of the highlights of that will be removal of the stadium seating. If you've been in there, we have all that seating at a 45-degree angle, and that's not useful to USBC. They've asked for that to be removed. Underneath there, that stadium seating is a restroom facility, and that will be moved to the north wall. And also, they've asked that the configuration of the settees, the banquettes that sit along the ball returns, that those be moved back a number of feet because it's too crowded for play. The remodel will also feature new floor coverings and some type of snack and beverage service bar, which they feel is essential for the viability of the facility. So we are working in concert with the financial department at the city and with USBC's blessing, but our meetings with them were very productive, very cordial, and again, they reiterated they love coming to Reno. It's been a great home for them, and they want to keep coming back, but with the age of the building, it's time that we make an investment, which we've already funded, prepared to do through that $2 surcharge. So that's pretty much the report. If any of you have any specific questions, member of the board, Mr. Murdoch, was with us, and Rick, anything you feel like adding to that at this time?
No, I think it's important that we get them past 26. It seems like they were here a lot in the early 2000s and mid 2000s. So I think it's still a large convention. You still,
well, it brings over 50,000 room nights to the city on a regular basis.
And the way we're yielding now, I think as a city as a whole, we can benefit. It just fills our cup.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Murdoch. Yesterday, I sent you out a note basically to have just a 2-hour facility focus on the Reno Sparks Livestock Event Center since Senate Bill 340 doesn't seem that it's going to pass. It's died a death. The Convention Authority will continue to run the Livestock Event Center for a number of years to come. And I think we should take the board, since many of you have not been given a tour of the facility. So on Thursday, June 15th, I would encourage all of you to attend to see the condition of the Livestock Event Center. We've also asked a couple of very interesting people who will be in town for Reno Rodeo. Bob Feist, who is really a name associated with Northern Nevada and the Reno Rodeo. He's one of the most famous rodeo announcers and has seen every facility in the entire West. And he also was the founder and owner for the Bob Feist Invitational Team Roping, which is the richest one-day team roping in the nation. He and 2 of his business partners have agreed to come and visit with us, as will George Combs, the general manager of the Reno Rodeo Association, and they'll give you some focused highlights on the pros and cons of the Livestock Event Center. But we'll also give you a review of the financials and also an update on how the Livestock Event Center fits into the strategic plan. But it will be a good 2 hours to start a discussion on what our commitment and what the future is to that facility. Also, you'll find in your packet under RSCVA staff update, I was to report to you officially today on the CEO short-term goals, which were the goals for this 6-month period. I'm happy to say that all of those have been successfully met. And also we've been in collaboration with On Strategy on goals for this next fiscal year. So for the sake of time, Mr. Lucy, that is the conclusion of my remarks for this morning.
Great, thank you,
I'm sure
Ms.
you'll call on me throughout the
Yeah,
remaining agenda.
unfortunately, you don't get to run away yet.
No.
So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mrs. Jennifer Cunningham for our marketing update, please.
Well, we had a really successful product launch press conference on the top of the museum on May 11th, and really appreciate some of the board members that joined us there. Mayor Sheeby and Bob Lucy kicked the event off, and I'm sure many of you saw the coverage, but it was on the news and it was in the paper, and so many comments, and everyone is loving the brand. They're getting behind it. We kind of gave you a quick view. The one comment that was brought up after we did the press conference, we did a luncheon for all the people in the marketing and advertising industry in our community. And the one question that came up was, well, it kind of looks male dominated, and we do have a lot of males in our pictures. In June, so in just a matter of a few weeks, we are doing a photo shoot, and it's almost all females, and jumping into Lake Tahoe and going down the river. So there's some really great photography and new assets that we'll be rolling out, and I'll share them with you when we get them. Let's see, our pins. So I want you guys all, if you would do us a favor, and remember the talk that Russell Rollincott gave us about the Vegas pins. I'd love it if you guys wear your pins on board days. And staff has agreed to wear theirs all the time. Really quickly, I'm just going to show you 3 pictures because our advertisement is up and out, and what's super cool is when you get an email from one of the top executives from Southwest Airlines saying, holy cow, look what's in the terminal in Seattle. So there's one. And then yesterday I got an email from David Walker at the museum. He was flying through LAX and showed us a few of the photographs. So the buzz is starting, and it's really great. The radio is out. We're getting just, the response has been awesome. Over the launch, we flew in our public relations people that we've retained out of Manhattan in New York. And okay, that was 3 weeks ago. We already have an article that is hitting in Men's Health Journal, actually talking about Whitney Peak, and it's described as one of the hotels that you just can't miss. And that is a result of they're out there starting to pitch our story. So other properties, don't worry, you'll be mentioned forthcoming, I'm sure. And the last thing I have is during the beginning of the meeting, I passed around that Sunset magazine, which just hit the presses. Spencer Spillman is one of the key influencers that we've been working with, and it's a pretty big time to have a social media influencer getting this kind of coverage in a national magazine. So we're rocking and rolling. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. And I gotta say, I also want to thank the board members, Mr. Wood, Mr. Murdoch, Mr. Hicks, for attending the brand launch. It was extremely well attended. Our staff did a phenomenal job. It was just a really high class, very top notch, and a wonderful brand launch. The social influencers that have been tremendously helpful. Everybody was in attendance, and I can't say enough. Very excited that this was the start and culmination of a lot of work by Ms. Cunningham and her team. And I didn't take the time to really thank her team during that, but your marketing team and through your leadership over the last year has been tremendous, and it shows. And so thank you for that. With that being said, Mr. Larragetta, do you sales?
Good morning, Chairman Lucy, members of the board. This morning I'm just going to be providing a brief update as it relates to staff travel, definite group room nights for the month of March, and some comments on the scorecard. To echo Phil's comments, we've been very successful in hiring staff the last 60 days. Our target date was July 1 to end at this fiscal year to have all approved sales positions filled. To date, we have one remaining position open in the Director of Trade Show. We made the decision to cast a little wider net just based on the quality of the candidates that were received so far. So again, our target is still July 1 to occupy that position. As it relates to travel, myself, Mr. Lone, and Mr. Jimenez, and the leisure team will be attending the Travel Industries Association's International Powwow in Washington, D.C., June 2 through June 7. As of today, we've secured 63 appointments. Those are 15-minute one-on-one appointments over the course of 3 days, which I think I can go on record saying is the most appointments that have ever been secured by this organization, this team, in the history of attending the powwow. These appointments will be with international buyers from all over the world that are interested in obviously hearing about our destination and contracting with our hotels to bring additional international business to our area. At last month's board meeting, I was asked to report on specific groups that were returned definite and are reflected in the current scorecard. So some of those highlights, first of all, in terms of total number, we've contracted for the month of March just north of 40,000 room nights, so went definite. Extremely higher than our budget amount and our goal for that month. And specific highlights as it related to segments, we booked 3 major sports programs. The first one taking place, which actually is a 3-year program in September of 2017, 18, and 19. Each one of these individual programs represents over 1,900 contracted room nights. Second sports business that went definite in the month of March is taking place in May 23rd through June 4th of 2018. Represents 2,800 contracted room nights, and the third, December 3 through 10 of 2018, and is 5,300 contracted room nights. We also booked a program that relates to the trade and commercial program segment, and that will take place in the spring and fall of 2018, 2 programs. Those 2 programs are 2,600 and 2,800 contracted room nights, respectively each. We also had an additional program from the law enforcement agency, and that is booked February 28th through March 7th of 2019 and represents 1,300 contracted room nights. And another from the sports, but I can speak specifically to this group, athletics, because it's using multiple properties. That went definite for the dates of June 13 through 21 of 2019 and represents north of 12,000 contracted room nights. And in conclusion, we had a group in the military segment for July of 19 through 27 for the year of 2023 for 1,200 contracted room nights. The March scorecard is positive in most categories, as you can see, specifically in the sports segment, where we saw a year-over-year growth of approximately 14,000 room nights. In conclusion, we are currently at 93% of the year-to-date goal through March, with 189,000 contracted net room nights on a goal of 201,500.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rivers, Finance and Facilities, please.
I will be brief. You have the scorecard for the month and through 3 quarters now of the year in there. You have the non-routine report, and you have the surcharge spend through 9 months of the fiscal year. Ms. Cunningham just mentioned we are about a couple weeks into the new campaign, so we'll start to see that spend increase pretty dramatically over the next few months. And there's the activity related to the facilities, both on the operational and capital aspects in the report as well. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions from the board at this time for any of the executive team? Mr. Hicks.
Yeah, so the current financials as of the end of March, this is the banker in me again, shows that we're under budget on the marketing side by $2.9 million. So, and obviously we're into May. What are the numbers for April and May that we've spent, do you think? Just ballpark.
I think it's 2.5 million.
Really, in the last 2 months?
In May and June.
2.5, that's excellent, excellent. Let's see if I had, thank you for that. I guess, is it now the time about the financials? Yeah. The current, Brian, the only thing that I noticed with the financials on as of the March, is that we look like we're about almost 900,000 on our debt reductions over budget. Debt service looks like it's, as of March, I'll have to find the page. Year to date was, it was almost 900,000 more than what the budget was in debt service repayment, and I was just curious about that.
That's related to an arbitrage payment we had to make for earning too much money on our investments related to the investments we had from bond proceeds from the convention center expansion. So we were, per the IRS, you can invest at a higher rate than your average bond yield. And that actually hit us a little bit sooner than we thought. We had it budgeted, I believe, in May originally.
So we just missed that on the budget side?
It's in the budget, it's just not in there as of March.
Okay, very good. So we'll see that even now
Yes.
by the end of the year. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from any of the board members? Seeing none, looking for a motion to accept the report. I have a motion from Mayor Sheedy, second from Mr. Murdoch. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Vice Chair.
In the interest of shortening our meeting up here, I'd like to group some block votes in here. I'd like to do F2, G1, G3, G5, and G7.
And a block. Is that a motion, sir?
That is a motion.
I have a motion to block F2, G1, G3, G5, and G7. Do I have a second for Mr. Vineyard? Any discussion on any of those items?
Welcome to Sparks.
All right. Seeing no discussion, motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. So with that being said, we are on to, I'm going to open the public hearing. We are open the public hearing for an item G2. This is a public hearing reviewing and adoption of the Reno Sparks Convention Visitors Authority 2017-2018 fiscal year budget, resolution 580. Mr. Brian Rivers.
And I will try to be fairly brief here, but please feel free to stop me with any questions. You have our budget for fiscal 17-18 in front of you. And just at a high level from a layout perspective, the items that are in green are 6 years of actual. You have the original budget and where we're projecting to end the year for the current fiscal year, which is the outlook, and the proposal for 17-18 in blue. So you've got really 8 years of trend here. And that's really what I'm going to focus on some of these points. At this point, we're showing for fiscal year 17-18 growth of about $3 million, primarily driven by room tax revenues growing by 7%. Oops, I went one slide too far. 1 second here. The rest of that growth is related primarily to facility revenues. And at a high level this year, what we have driving that growth is we have a good convention calendar led by American Legion at Elks coming in July and August. We have USBC women coming back, and that's compared against a dark year for 16-17. And we have some occupancy and ADR growth, which is also driven by resort fee increases at the properties. So those are really the high-level drivers of how we get to that 7% growth. And again, on the facility revenues, the bowling stadium is the largest increase, and that's driven by activity. I'm going to go down into a little bit more detail related to the room taxes. So to talk about the growth here, we're showing 111,000 room night growth as it relates to cash occupied rooms. That's 3.2%. We're also looking at approaching $100 ADR for the first time ever. We're looking to land at $99.63, which is a $3.50 growth over the current year. What's interesting to look at here is if you go back to 10-11, 11-12, we were sitting at about $72. So we're looking at about $30 a night growth over that span, which is huge. So thank you all for your contributions. Please keep it up. Let's get over that 100 and keep on charging. Again, that growth, USBC's about 30,000 room nights. There's some convention growth in it. There's a breakdown on the sheet before that by market segment of how we got to the growth numbers. But it works out to, again, a really nice year followed by some really nice years the past 3 or 4 years as we continued to grow out of the Great Recession. Back again in 10-11, we were sitting at $230 million in taxable room revenues. At the if we hit our budget number, we're looking at $360 million. So some fantastic growth. Facilities, again, bowling stadium's the largest driver, 300,000 in growth, and that again is due to the bowling tournament coming back April through June of next year. I'm gonna jump back in here. There's capital, non-operating expenses in here, but in discussions internally and with some of the board, I wanted to highlight the sales and marketing expenses. There's been obviously a large discussion on that in conjunction with the surcharge. If you look back to 10-11 again, we were sitting at about $6 million in total sales, tourism, and marketing spend. That includes payroll, all the ad placements we do, special events, everything that would roll through the sales and marketing arm of the organization. We're projecting to be just over 16 million in the budget. And with that, 9.5 million of that would be in the marketing department. Again, that still includes special event payroll, but significant increase in the dollars and placements associated with not just the Bay Area, but the other markets that we're going into now. But that's nearly $10 million growth over 7 years. And again, we want to see that number grow, but it's definitely some good traction and good deployment of the dollars that are coming in through the surcharge. For the private sector folks, this margin and cash flow item is really the net cost of each department. So the facilities end up costing us about $3.4 million. At this point, Wild Creek is in for the entire year and projected to lose $244,000. As it relates to sales and marketing, I just mentioned, we're looking at about $16 million in net spend there, and then the remainder goes to G&A, capital, and debt, and that gets us to a balanced budget. As it relates to debt service, we've got about 15 years left on the debt at about $9.6 million a year. That's all related to the building across the street in the convention center. If no other debt were issued, that would be paid off in July 1 of 32, but it sits at about $9.6 million. The following pages are related to the individual facilities or departments. So there's activities and P&Ls for the convention center, bowling stadium, event center, livestock event center, Wild Creek, as well as convention sales, tourism sales, and the last thing I'm just going to highlight in marketing as it relates specifically to the promo and advertising spend. We're pushing that from what was about $2 million in promo and advertising spend to 7.7 in the budget. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions related to the budget, but I'll try to keep it brief at this point.
Mr. Araceli.
Hi, Mr. Rivers, Brian. Where do we end up with the Mountain West tournament this year? I see, in non-expensive, I didn't see a number for the Big Sky, I'm sorry. No.
We're still waiting for a few numbers to come in. It will be a little bit better than it was last year. I think we're projecting about 120,000 at this point loss against, I believe it was 157 last year.
We have one more year on that, contract,
Correct.
right? And second question, we sponsored $50,000 for a PBA association July and December of 16. Was that effective? We get any?
Was that what? I'm sorry?
PBA association, we sponsored 50,000 travel. Something to do with the PBA?
It was, and primarily our interest was getting the word out with the bowling stadium on national TV. It seems to me I did a quick presentation on the exposure we got. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'm happy to share it with you. So the cameo shots we got of the Reno destination and all of the commercials and TV time, I think it was on ESPN.
So it was a spend.
Great.
It was an advertising marketing spend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Araceli, anything further? Mr. Murdoch?
On that spend too, it's very similar to the Reno Tall Open. When you get commercials on ESPN, it's the destination, right?
And it was also supporting our bowling stadium and the sport. So, yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you very much. All right, one of the things I did meet with Jennifer and Phil on this, and what was really important in the city side was a separate arm for marketing and branding the bowling stadium. That's been neglected for an extremely long time. I think in here it says 50. I'm going to continue to advocate of having a separate arm for marketing and branding that bowling stadium. I never hear any more people say to me, where are you from? And obviously many years ago, people would say, oh yeah, the National Bowling Stadium's there. They don't say that anymore. They don't even know it exists. And I think, you know, thinking outside the box, Jennifer and I talked about this, you know, she also did say that the bowling sort of world is very small. But I think we're going to have to think outside of the box. I'm going to be a huge advocate for doing this right when we redo that bowling center. We get one shot at this. I'm not necessarily sure if the Worth Group is the one to be doing it. I have a lot of concerns, so this will be a bigger discussion. I just want everyone to know where I'm going, and I'm going to be extremely vocal about where we need to go with this. And I know some people are like, oh, you know, it's downtown, it's downtown. Yes, and if it's downtown and it's doing well, everyone else's rooms are going to be doing well. Everyone's seeing that now. And Reno's changed. We've arrived. So, but now more than ever, that bowling stadium needs to really have some love, because the city has put in an astronomical amount. I know, you know, the downtown properties have too, and now more than ever, we got to get this right. So I just want to make sure I'm going to continue to follow this in the budget.
I think you mentioned the architect in my meetings yesterday or earlier in the week with Bill Thomas and Mr. Chisel and Sabra Newby. They were going to seek alternative bids on an architectural firm. I don't know if they've passed that on to you yet or not.
No, they had not told me that. We were in council all day, but I'm encouraged. So,
great.
I mean, we can talk about it at a later date, but I think there's some exciting elements that could really take shape there. So, anyway.
All right, seeing any other discussion at this time, Mr. Murdoch. Mr. Murdoch, I'm going to kindly ask you to leave now.
That must be where the increase in Wild Creek revenue is coming from. Right.
That's exactly what
we've budgeted for
right.
$100,000 in increase.
All right, you can stay. All right. Seeing no further discussion at this time in regards to the budget, looking for a motion. Oh, sorry. Since this is a public hearing, I'm going to call for public comment. Seeing no public comment at this time, we'll close with public comment, bring it back to the board. Mr. Vice Chair.
Move to approve the proposed fiscal year 2017-18 annual plan as presented.
I have a motion by the Vice Chair Lawson, second by Mr. Hicks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on Mr. Kennedy.
So just so everybody, we're going to be passing around a resolution that everybody's going to be required to sign, so just don't leave before you sign that.
Thank you for that. Okay, we are on to the actual annual plan, review, discussion, possible action of the annual plan. G4.
Did I make the motion on the wrong one?
You made the motion. We were doing the fiscal year budget.
Okay.
We were on G2.
Yeah.
You said annual plan, but it works, doesn't it?
All right.
We're on to the annual plan.
You know what I meant.
Yes. So at this time, Mr. DeLone. This is the strategic plan, the discussion about anything that the changes, and in this discussion, I want to have a brief discussion. A year ago, we had a board retreat, as most of you were in attendance. A few of you were not, as new board members. At that retreat, myself and Jennifer Cunningham led that with on strategy prior to Mr. DeLone's arrival. What it called for is that every year that it came back for reapproval of this board of that said annual plan. What I propose today we do with the annual plan is that with the addition of Mr. DeLone and his now new tenure but short tenure here at the organization. And we have quite a few new board members who are now participating in this. What I'd like to do is propose, and we've had discussions with Mr. DeLone, Ms. Cunningham, and also Ms. Olson from On Strategy, is propose that we approve the current annual plan as presented today, but to have amendments made. What I would like to propose is that in our August board meeting, conduct our August board meeting as an actual board retreat that day to reevaluate goals, initiatives, make any changes to said strategic plan, and allow the new board members to participate in that process, because I think there's a lot to kind of digest at this time, and give you ample time to meet with Erica Olson and staff to discuss what you feel the future initiatives of this organization should be, and if those do align. And the other thing is allow Mr. DeLone, now that he's had it the last few months, to assess the organization and where he feels the organization can go, that he have the opportunity at that strategic plan in August, or that strategic retreat in August, to share his input on the strategic plan and how he sees that needs to be changed going forward. That was always the intent and the initiative when we drafted this last summer, was to allow that input from our new CEO. And so instead of, we need to do it today because of contractually and what we have, but I'd like to come back and do that in August. And so approve the plan going forward, but to be amended come August during the strategic retreat. So I'm looking forward to any discussion in regards to that. Or any opposition, challenges to that discussion? I'm going to make a motion that we do. I made a motion. I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. All right, and we are now on to item G6. Phil DeLone, President and CEO, goals and objectives.
That's related also, Bob, to the motion you just passed.
It is. It's going to be. I'm going to do it separately. It ties in very similarly. With those CEO goals and objectives align with that strategic plan. I feel that right now, due to contractually, because the way we drafted his contract, that we need to approve his goals today. But what I would like to do, based upon that board retreat in August, that the board have time to participate and really look at the information provided, have one-on-one meetings with Mr. DeLone between now and that August retreat, discuss what those goals look like, and at that retreat, then set his goals or amend the goals that we approved today based upon the goals that were set in the previous. Mrs. Rizak.
Just because it does touch on the contract, and it's for fiscal year goals of 17-18, of which that review would be sometime in the late summer or fall of 2018. An August timeframe, provided all of the parties, including Mr. DeLone, were on in agreement, we could easily do an amendment related to the date for this fiscal year goals, because part of what you have here, as you know, the overall goal percentage is 40%. This proposal right now does not have those percentages in place at this point, so that would be something that the board would have to decide. But if you want to direct staff, because we also have time before a July 1st timeframe when the new fiscal year starts, you have another meeting in June. If you would like to have conversations and come back with either a proposal of set goals that could be amended in August, or an agreement that the goals will be set at that August retreat, you could do so.
And so my recommendation to the board is that we set the goals at the August retreat and proceed proceed as currently, and we could do that, correct?
What I would suggest is you would come back and have just a short amendment to the contract that you could approve at the June meeting. If both parties are on board, that would state that you would set those fiscal year 17-18 goals at the August retreat.
Okay. So I think that would be what we, I think that would be the initiative. Is there any discussion or changes to that suggestion at this time? Seeing none. Mr. DeLone, you're good with that? Okay. All right. Seeing none, I would make a motion that we come back at the June meeting with goals and initiatives, and then for those to be amended during the August meeting, correct?
Actually, what you could do is you will come back at the June meeting with just an amendment to his contract.
Okay.
Stating that you will set the goals in August after you have the retreat, because that's when everybody is informed. He's been able to present to you exactly what his proposals are, and the board can make that decision in August.
Great. That would be my motion, as spoken so eloquently by our attorney. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our business for the day. I am on to board member comments regarding any items of the future. Any items that we'd like to bring up? Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll try to make it brief because I know everyone's been sitting here for a long time. Anyway, one of the things I want this board to look at and everyone start to think and consider this, but it really dawned on me, we have the special events arm at the City of Reno. And what we found out is that a lot of other special events are going to different entities, whether it's the county, RSCVA, maybe even the airport, I don't know, and requesting money. And none of us seem to know how much money each one of those events are getting. So there's a big disconnect on special events and sort of how we collaborate with everyone. And some are getting a lot of money and some are getting very little bit of money. And I think it needs to be much more of a regional approach with the county, City of Sparks, City of Reno, probably have a liaison from the airport and the RSCVA. So the region is all on one page when it comes to special events, because otherwise we're diluting it and we can have much bigger impact if we're doing it together. So it's something I want the board to consider, and you know, I'll talk to my council, but I would just throw it out there that if there's an appetite for it, I think we should look at something like that.
Yeah, I think I would urge that we do the same. I know Mr. Lawson and I have had the same discussions in regards to unifying our efforts to support special events in the community. And so I want to continue to do that. And so I'd like to put that on the future agenda with Madam Mayor, probably for either our June meeting or our August retreat to do that. So I would suggest that. One other thing I want to point out is I'm going to, based upon the discussion here today with Wild Creek, I'm going to reinstitute. One thing that we tried to move away from was the smaller subcommittees and bring all issues into the board. But I think with this Wild Creek program and in light of the legislation that failed to come to light during this session in regards to Livestock Event Center, is have a subcommittee on facilities. Again, a 3-member subcommittee. So what I would like to do, Vice Chair Lawson would lead that subcommittee. So I'm looking for 2 other members of the board, and you could contact me directly to do that. But we will institute that facility, which will be worked with Mr. DeLone and Mr. Rivers to discuss any issues of facilities, make recommendations back to this board. So we will be reinstituting that to do not only deal with financial and policy decisions for those facilities, but also the political, so to speak, outreach to the community on how we're moving forward with those. Mr. Rivers?
Mr. Kennedy, at one point we discussed eliminating committees. Did we eliminate the facilities committee? Do you remember, or did we just discuss structure?
We'll have to go back and look at the minutes. I don't believe we got rid of it. I believe it still exists, and essentially what the chair is talking about, per our board procedures, the chair has unilateral discretion to appoint members to the committees. So assuming that we haven't gotten rid of the facilities committee.
We never disposed of any of the.
I was just saying, if we did get rid of it, we could go to finance.
No, we never disposed of any of the committees. We just failed to put anybody into them aside from the finance committee, just because we felt that those, and the marketing committee. So, but the facilities committee we never filled. So now we're going to bring that back because we see necessary need for that going forward. And then one last thing, just as we voted, but if any of you have attended any of our sales meetings, and the convention. Part of our new brand, I have to say to Mr. Larraguetta, Mr. DeLone, and staff, the new sales booth that will be representing us at all of our sales expos is beautiful, state-of-the-art, phenomenal. Hargrove has done a phenomenal job with this. We're working on models that will go into this. It's a very interactive display. It's welcoming. It's modern, and I can't say enough about how excited I am to see this in action, because it truly now speaks to what our community is. And I got to say, I commend this board. I mean, 2 years ago when I came onto this board, I was frustrated with the direction we were going. It seemed like we were a bunch of scared mice when the lights turned on. Now we've come together as a very unified front, and we have accomplished a tremendous amount of work. I know if Mr. Farahi was here, he'd be yelling at me because we haven't booked the room nights yet, and he wants the secured business, but the initiative of where we're going as a group has been phenomenal, and I can't thank enough these board members and your attendance and your support through these processes. So with that, seeing no other board member comments, since I've taken all that time, is there yes, Madam Mayor.
Jennifer, I want to commend you so much. You took a lot of risk. You took a lot of risk. I will tell you, this is a totally different feel from whenever, what, has it been 2 years or 3?
2 years. 3 years, actually.
I think it's been 3. I mean, this board has made tremendous accomplishments, and I will continue to do that moving forward. Everyone is on the same page, and we will continue to hound you for track record.
That's right.
All right.
Mr. Caraceli.
I have a suggestion. We could send Mr. Farahi false dates for meetings. That way we won't holler at him.
It's the 3rd Thursday of every month.
I think you'll figure it out.
One last thing, and one thing I do want to, one thing is with these beautiful pins, I do, please don't lose these. Please wear these to every board meeting.
You're sleeping in them.
I sleep in mine. I mean, I'm Mr. Logo Wear. I don't know if you've ever seen me without logo wear on, so, but please wear these with pride. They are a symbol of who we are, and as leaders of this organization and of this region, I would expect that we continue to conduct ourselves as such. So this is a new day at RSCVA, and I thank you for all that. So I appreciate it. All right, with that being said, no comments from the floor. We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.